Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Quantum Leap Year Live Workshop today. I'm so excited to see you here. We're going to go over a couple things before we get started with our beautiful presentation. If it is your first time meeting me, my name is Sage Gwendolyn. I am an expansion coach, a mom, a business owner, and I will be your fairy guide today. A little bit about me, and we'll get more into me towards the end of the presentation. Okay, so we are going to be taking a couple breaks in between because I know that I get very antsy when I sit for a long time, and this workshop is going to be about 2 hours. It's a lot of information I have for everybody. I'm very excited to share, but it is very lengthy. And so especially if you're a neurospicy, we're going to take some 5-minute breaks here and there. So if you need to get up and move your body around and do a mental reset. Okay, towards the end or at the end of this presentation, for all of my beautiful people who are here live with me, I'm going to be doing a random giveaway for one of you for a private one-on-one coaching session. So we're going to put it into a random generator and spin the wheel together. Okay. So if you are not able to stay for the whole entire presentation, if you're here live and your kids are running around, your dogs need something, it's fine. If you have to pop out, you'll still be entered for the giveaway. So we are going to be utilizing the chat today for the people who are here live. And so if you have questions as I'm going through the presentations, I'm going to take a pause before we go through each slide and then answer them to the best of my ability, or let you know if it's in the upcoming slide. My information, if you have questions that expand past the things that I'm talking about here and you want to reach out to me, I'm going to share my socials at the end of the slide. So you'll be able to reach out to me, email, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all the places. There will be a replay. So that takes a couple hours to process. So I'll get that to everybody tomorrow. And I appreciate y'all who are watching this in the future too. I know everybody's on different time zones, so not everybody can attend live. Oh, that's okay. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you what your biggest takeaway was, because it helps you with retention with your subconscious and helps you have like a cumulative experience, like snapshot. And it also helps me with feedback, so I know how I can implement that in future workshops and lives. Okay, do we have any questions before we jump on in here? I'm going to check the chat really quick. And I'll give y'all just a moment. And also, if y'all haven't already, if you want to grab a piece of paper and a pen and pencil, we're going to be doing interactive goal activities together. You don't have to. Would recommend though. So it's nothing too intensive, but it's going to get our future identity implemented here. Okay, no questions. So we will go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to make sure one last time I hit record. Okay, just in case. So what is quantum shifting? Quantum shifting is a big leap in your personal development through raising your consciousness. And this is when you release behavioral patterns, thoughts, past narratives, limiting beliefs, or outdated identities which you were attached to that are no longer serving you. I know we have all been through experiences where we thought certain things or felt certain emotions, and then they kind of start to not resonate with us anymore. And that can even be relationships too. Like sometimes we outgrow different phases in our life, hobbies, lots of different things. And we're going to get into how that can bring on some heavy emotions sometimes. Right? We've all been through that before, where we look around and we say, oh, I feel like some of these things that used to serve me aren't serving me anymore, but we still have, a deep attachment to some of the things. And so it can be a journey and a process for sure. But basically, when you are wanting to make major changes in your life, if there's things around you in your reality that are not on the same frequency level or consciousness level as that new you, those things can't come with to the new timeline. Sometimes we oscillate. We try and take them with us, and it like grinds the gears of you trying to move forward. And so we're going to talk about today how to work through those processes a little bit easier, hopefully, for you in your journey. Okay, changes are reality lenses. So this is how we interact with other people and how we interact with ourselves. So all of the programming that we receive when we're children, young adult, teenage years, we learn things from our parents, teachers, guardians, social media, friends, and those all give us certain lenses that we look through. And so sometimes when people are talking about manifesting, they say, oh, well, you created everything in your reality, right? I know we've all heard that before, or maybe it's your first time hearing it. But sometimes that gets a very negative rap because they're like, oh, why would I choose all of this negativity around me? Or why would I choose narcissistic relationships? Or why would I choose to be broke, right? But oftentimes they're not talking about you doing that consciously. They're saying that you're doing that subconsciously. So conscious mind is your day-to-day interactions. Like you going to work, you hanging out with your kids, all these things. But your subconscious is the program. You can think of it like a computer. So if your parents and guardians and teachers have been telling you like, oh, money is the root of all evil, or you can't trust people, or it's a scary world out here, that stuff is constantly running back there. And it is influencing not only how you interact with other people in that reality outside of yourself, but how you interact with yourself internally as well. And so we've all known like shadow work, right? So inner child healing is so important because that is where the root of most of our behavioral patterns and triggers come from. And I always like to tell people like these things are not your fault. Like if you are stuck in life or you're experiencing these very heavy behavioral patterns or just things that are not serving you, 9 times out of 10, you just pick that up from somebody. Like you were taught these things. Babies are not born with self-limiting beliefs. They're not really born with like fears or behavioral patterns and things of that nature. Now, there is something to be said for like generational trauma and DNA sequencing and things like that. But for the most part, babies are just born a blank slate. So it's always great to ask yourself, where did this come from? Why is this here with me? Right? Because most of the time you can answer that. Like who exemplified this in my life? Who was doing this, right? Maybe it was your mom, maybe it was your grandpa, maybe it was, different family members, different teachers, but you can usually trace back where is the first time that I saw this outside of myself. And then you have to start asking yourself, is this really my truth? Or is just this something that I learned from somebody else or society or social media? There's lots of different influences that we have. So your subconscious, where all that stuff is in the background telling you how reality works, is running 95% of your actions. This is why people get stuck in a life that just kind of like looks the same every single day, right? I know we've all been there before. I have too. And it's because your brain wants to keep you in comfortability, wants to keep you in the known, in your old truths and values and beliefs, whatever you were taught. Okay, because there's safety in that. It's like, okay, well, at least we know what this looks like. If we deviate away from that, it could cause a lot of chaos. Now, your conscious brain, okay, is telling you, no, let's go ahead and make the changes because it's going to be way better on the other side, right? Be a CEO boss babe, be a millionaire, be in your dream house, in your dream car, or a dream career, or whatever you want to do. Your conscious brain is like, yeah, that sounds fabulous. That stuff running in the subconscious back here from that you picked up from other people's trauma projections and what they think is possible for their lives. That's why you have to be very mindful about who you share your dreams and goals and visions with. Because if they can't see themselves in that position, their fears and doubts and worries will start to overlay on yours. Even if they're not saying it. We're all empaths here, okay? So we know that we can pick up on people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Now, that's where we have to start learning how to stand in our authenticity and saying, nope, this is what I'm going to do. Despite whatever, fears, doubts, and worries and trauma projections that other people have. But if you're newer to these things, sometimes we don't have as strong of filters yet. And so my suggestion is if you have like wildly big dreams, okay, that you're very excited about, you don't even know how you're going to get there, you just know that you are, and it sounds a little cuckoo to somebody else because they're not on the same wavelength as you, like be mindful of who you're sharing these things with, because we don't want to cut ourselves off before we get started. Like we always want to be sharing those things with people that are having our best interest at heart, who support us. Maybe they don't understand, but they're like, yeah, I believe in you. I'm so excited for you, right? There's a difference in that and sharing that with people that are like, well, how are you going to do that? Right? It's like nitpicking with that type of energy. And they can do that without even saying that. It's like the vibe, the energy that you feel off of people. So we need to be mindful of that. But these grooves that we get into is the same old happening all the time. Again, that goes back to safety and security. So if you had kind of a tumultuous childhood, which if you're watching this right now, you probably have a lot of empaths and light workers, but sometimes we have this very deep fear of making changes in our life because our childhoods were so rocky. And not just childhood. Like it can be teenage, like I had a very rocky teenage experience, young adult experience. And so changes to me equaled trauma, right? I was trying to keep as much stability as I could. And that was a great thing. Like we love that because it kept me safe and it allowed me to get out of my circumstances slowly. But then I hit this precipice point in my life where I was like, okay, well, we're safe now, right? Physically and energetically. But if we don't make different choices and step outside of our comfort zone, now we're just stuck. And that was me for very many years. I was just very much stuck in this one reality box that I did not seem to be able to get out of. But that was because the fear of change was holding me back. And once I got accustomed to changes and being used to feeling uncomfortable, that's when I started seeing rapid changes in my reality. You can choose an identity who is safe with self, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. But you can choose that I am safe identity. I trust myself. I know myself. Whatever we need to do, I will pivot if we need to, but we're not going to live under the umbrella of I'm so scared to make changes because of what has happened in the past, because those are past narratives. That's when we're latching onto old identities that are no longer serving us, but they did in the past. And so that's why I want to be really mindful when I'm talking about these things is we never want to feel shameful and guilty for things that we have done in the past, ever, ever, ever. I'm going to go on a little tangent here, okay? Because y'all know I love talking about inner child healing. The number one worst thing that you can do with your inner children and your past versions is be upset with them and hold shame and guilt and regret over them. Because 9 times out of 10, when I'm doing client sessions, that is what happened to you as a child from your parents and guardians or your teachers or so-called friends. Okay. We've all had those before. And they utilize those tactics, even if they don't mean to try and get you to conform in some type of way, right? Especially, and this is not representative of everybody, okay? But a lot of light workers and empaths have to hide their magic for a long time, many years. They're demonized for it. You know, you're the rainbow sheep, I like to call it. And so you learn to like cultivate these masks around you to keep yourself safe. And so we thank our inner children and our past versions for doing what they needed to do to get us to where we're at right now. Like what a beautiful, magical experience that they had the wherewithal and the strength and the courage. And so what's not beneficial is to look back at them in time because they're still there. Okay. We won't get into like a super big inner child healing chat here today, but they're still there. They can hear you. Okay, so a pivotal point change in my spiritual awakening journey was realizing how much that was damaging me. Is saying, oh, well, you could have done this, or we should have done that, or like, why did you say this, and all this stuff. We never know why our inner children or our past versions have to do certain things. Like just because they look at a decision of like, oh, well, if I had tried something different, our life could have been so different. You don't know that. Sometimes when I'm looking at people's soul contracts, and we're about to get a little wooey esoteric here, when I'm looking at people's soul contracts and looking at their life, I'm like, if you didn't make this one decision that looked really bad in the beginning, like you wouldn't be over here. So we just need to blank slate, and we're going to talk about narratives in a minute, but blank slate and say like, I can choose to be a new person at any moment, and I'm going to choose to be a person that holds unconditional love over me in the present and over me in the past. Because love will take you to places that you never thought you could go. But that starts with unity consciousness within self. I know we all hear that with unity consciousness out here, right? If you want to experience real unity consciousness, you do that with you. And then the reality outside of you shifts to that. There was a time where I was so hard on myself, and I'm not above that, right? Because that, life. There's a time where I was so hard on myself, really hated myself. And I was experiencing so much anxiety and depression. And my reality outside of me was just horrible, 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 horrible. Went through so many things. And it wasn't until I started to forgive myself and love myself unconditionally that all of that stuff started to heal. And then my reality outside of me completely changed. All the relationships, job, money, everything, it all stems from you, right? So we're going to talk about inner child healing. When I say past versions, I mean you in your 20s, you in your teens, you in your 30s or 40s, or you yesterday. Okay? They all have their own consciousness that is evolving with you on this journey. And so we need to make sure that we're holding the utmost love for them while we're going through these experiences. And I'll explain why in depth a little bit more here. Okay, I'm going to check the chat. Ooh, or maybe. Okay, me too. I feel so stuck right now. I've been in the same job for over 10 years. Yeah, okay, so that's a great example, okay, Megan. So that's been me in the past too, where I've been like stuck at one place, and then I would start to kind of like beat myself up about it. Not saying that's what you're doing, but just as an example, and beat myself up about it and be like, oh my God, like why are we here? Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And that's that type of energy that eats away at your energy. Like negative self-reflection, again, Megan, not saying that was you, but negative self-reflection, instead of looking at it as like, why am I here? How is this helping me grow? Maybe there are some changes that I can make in my life, but we definitely want to make sure that we're not self-deprecating, because you also don't always know why you're in certain chapters of your life. Like I've had that realization of when I'm stuck and stagnant, I'm literally in the chapter of my life of teaching myself how to get unstuck so I can teach somebody else how to get unstuck. Like oftentimes when you're in the void and you're like wandering around aimlessly, you're really not, honestly. What's happening is life is asking you to expand, and it's up to you to see it through that perceptual lens, because if you're looking through the other lens of berating, you stay stuck. Right? So we always want to be on growth, evolution, movement. Sometimes rejection is redirection. Sometimes being stuck is a time to level up and change and shift your identity. But we always want to try and look at, how is this serving me? Because it's there for a reason. And we're going to get into that a little bit more about working with a universal algorithm. But these things are happening to help you grow and evolve in some capacity. Sometimes it's hard to see why. Okay, like I get that. I've been in the void before and I'm like, what the heck is going on? But it's there to serve you in some type of capacity. Okay, rejection is redirection, is a life-changing perspective. Yes, because you never know. That's what I'm talking about with the inner children too. Like, just because, let's say that you stole something from Walmart, okay, as a kid, and you got like a whole bunch of trouble, and your parents were like super upset with you, and now you're like thinking about 15-20 years ago, and you're like, oh my God, why did I do that? Like I got in so much trouble and it changed the trajectory. What if though, like there's a higher force above you? And I'm not excusing like behavior, okay? As far as like we shouldn't be doing certain things, but how do we know that didn't keep you on like one certain timeline? Right? Because if you start to look at your life in like a bigger web, so sometimes you can pinpoint like, oh yeah, like if I hadn't have done that, this other thing might have happened, and then we would be on some other type of track in life. Okay, so I just want to offer that in case. Maybe not the Walmart example is probably not the best, but maybe other things in your life. Okay. Okay, your external reality is a reflection of your internal state of consciousness. So Bashar talks a lot about this. I don't know if anybody knows who he is. He is a great spiritual teacher, very esoteric, very woo, but also practical, Bashar. And so everything you see outside of you, like I said before, is a reflection of what is going on in your internal state. And again, sometimes that can be a little disconcerting when you hear that, because it's like, I didn't choose this stuff. And I'm going to give you an example. Okay. So I was in a narcissistic, abusive relationship for many years of my life. And I was very angry at the universe, obviously, when you're in that phase. And I was like, why does my reality look like this? It wasn't just a relationship, though. It was like many different facets of my life that were just wonky. Okay. And I would hear people say that, of like, oh, well, it's your vibration, it's your frequency. And I didn't understand what they were saying. And now I realize it's because of the filters. It's because I was not taught what good romantic relationship looks like, because the people that raised me, my grandparents, were not the best example of that. I had a lot of narcissistic people around me, a lot of people that did not hold boundaries, that were very aggressive, just all these things. If that's all you see as a child, you are going to pull that into you. You consciously, as an adult, know that those things aren't good. That's why we do behavioral patterns, and why we have triggers and gravitate towards things and people that aren't good for us. It's because you don't know anything else. That's you literally have filter lenses that say, I know what this looks like. I don't know what unconditional love looks like. I don't know what healthy boundaries look like. Like you literally were not taught those things. So I'm saying, like, we need to make sure that we're holding unconditional love over self, because you got to think, you got all these little sweet little angel babies inside of you, these little inner children that we're not given the tools and resources. So like, they're going to naturally gravitate towards these things because that's the only way that they know how to live. Now, is it our responsibility to go in and help them take those lenses off? For sure. Okay. But I also want you to realize it takes time. Like, raising your consciousness is not something that just happens. Sometimes it does, right? Sometimes you can have instant download realizations, but this takes time to defragment, right? Especially if it's been 20, 30, 40, 50 years that you've been running these programs and these behavioral patterns and lenses. It's okay, right? We need to give ourselves a energetic hug and say, I love you, and you're here right now, right? I'm super proud of everybody that's here live, or you're watching this in the future. That means you're a very self-aware being, and you want the best for you and maybe your family and your friends. And so congratulate yourself for being here right now, because that means that you are doing what you are supposed to be, but you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves and be like, I gotta do it right now, right? Trauma is very intense, and you got to sift through a lot of trauma to have consciousness jumps. Okay, I've been there, done that. Okay, it's not easy to dig through the pain. It's not easy to process the emotions. It's not easy to face yourself in the mirror, right? And look at what's not working. And so if you are making forward movement, don't compare and contrast to somebody else's forward movement. Okay, I had that conversation with somebody the other day. I was like, some people are starting at 0 through life, and some people are starting at -50. Okay. Like a lot of light workers and empaths that grew up, with narcissistic or didn't have tools and resources. Like, don't compare yourself. Compare you to you. That's it. What is your growth within? Okay. And so we have a comment here. Hold on. Yep, love watching Bashar. Yeah, he's awesome. Okay, the universal algorithm. What you place energy and attention to is what you get more of. Okay, so just like social media, like TikTok, Instagram, what you are pointing your perception at is what you're going to get more of. And I'm going to give you an example of how this played out when I was healing my anxiety and depression. So, and learning that I was neurodivergent and things. So I was watching TikToks, Instagram, about people who were anxious and depressed, which is very validating, very, very validating. Also, when I was very broke, other people talking about how they were having similar experiences, which at the beginning super beneficial because I was like, oh, it's not just me. I'm not alone. I'm not just some like weirdo either. Like I'm a highly sensitive person. I didn't know what an empath was or a light worker at that time. And so all of those things I'm watching really, really help validate. But then I hit this precipice point where I was watching all this information and it was keeping me there. And it was just validating my experience and keeping me stuck. And I'm not saying that we don't need validation, like that's great, but I had to make a conscious choice of if I want to get out of where I'm at right now, I have to watch things that are going to give me the tools and resources to get out. Because if you are just flooding your consciousness with like music that's not good for you, or, you know, television, and I'm not above these things, okay? We're all human. But if we're watching a lot of things with drama, if we're participating in a lot of dramatic conversations with like friends and family members, if we are around a lot of toxic people, like it's not just the algorithm that works that, like you work that way. So what are we putting into our body? Not just like food, but what type of music, what type of environment, like what do we have going around in our room? Does it feel high vibration, high frequency? Are we taking care of ourselves? What type of TV shows are we watching, right? And I'm not saying, you know, don't watch your drama shows, but we have to realize like what the majority, like life is all perception. It's all attention. If you are wanting to become a millionaire, but we are listening to people on TikTok or, you know, where our friends or family like talk about how broke they are and how evil rich people are and that there's not enough money and all these things, that will literally be your experience. You will have no other experience. And sometimes it's a difficult thing to hear because it means you have to do a detox of your life. And I went through that. I went through a very intensive dark night of the soul. It was not fun. And I had to let go of every single thing in my life, except for like my son and my dogs, my job, my friends, some of my family members. And I'm not saying to just cut people out. Okay. Like there's sometimes you can't do that, but we can rearrange how much time and energy that we're pouring into certain people, places, and things. Like like I had, you know, I used to smoke for a long time. Nothing, you know, if you do that, like just my own personal experience. And it took me a very long time to let go of that because it was something that I utilized to help my anxiety. But there was underlying causes to that anxiety. And so I had to start digging and looking at what those things are and eventually let go of that behavioral pattern. But, you know, there's going to be more that come up, but it's a very long process, but you got to commit to it. You got to say, what in my life right now is not on the same frequency and vibration as who I am trying to become or where I'm trying to go. Because I used to have a lot of people around me as far as like friends, relationships that I knew that they could not come with me. But I had a very intense wound of abandonment. And I said, well, if I let go of them, then I don't have anybody. And I had a very intense fear of being alone. And so what ended up happening to me is I went through a dark night of the soul where everybody left my life. Now, when I look back, and I'm not saying that's going to happen to you, okay? That's my own personal experience. But looking back at it, like that was like 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I can see none of that stuff could come with me to who I am now. I have a completely different life that is full of like peace and just chill and high vibe, high frequency. And I can look back and there's no judgment because I was not in the best frequency. I was not the person who I am today, right? And no judgment towards her, but that identity that I was living in and that type of reality life, a lot of that stuff had to go. And so that's where we're going to get into this quantum manifesting over here and shifting your identity, because I want to give everybody a very realistic viewpoint of what happens when you start to consciously quantum shift. It can be very intense. Like if you are ready to like buckle down and really reinvent your life, I'm just going to let you know you're probably going to have a lot of stuff that leaves. Okay. And that can look very different for very different people. It might be job, it might be, you know, friends, it might be what at your car, but it's gotta go. And so while I'm talking about this, I want you to think, okay, what came up when Sage was saying that? Because I guarantee there was something okay, that came up and you're like, ooh, okay, right? Like maybe I do need to look at that a little bit. And this is not something that you have to do overnight. Sometimes these changes aren't instant. Sometimes it takes a little while for your consciousness to understand why these things are not beneficial for you. So that's where like shadow work comes in and like reflection, why you might be in the void space and stuck and stagnant. Sometimes stuck in stagnation is necessary reflection. Like sometimes the universe will put a pause on your life and make you have no forward movement until you readjust and reassess things. I have been there many a time myself where it's like, girl, you're not going nowhere until you get like these different things in your life, because you can't shift until you change your energetics or your environment or the things that are around you, right? Okay, I'm gonna check here. I feel like I'm coming out of that dark night of the soul you're talking about, or wrapping up in a way. Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a difference when you're going into one and when you feel like you're coming out of one, for sure. Okay. And we're going to get a little bit more into the universal algorithms that can make it a little bit more tangible for everybody, but I want to go ahead and give a sneak preview of that. Okay, quantum jumping happens when you step outside of your comfort zone. You make a different choice. You have a different thought. You feel different emotions. So we all know you cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results. I know that's very frustrating sometimes. Right? And when you start to consciously quantum jump as well, sometimes life will be going great. Your relationships are great. Your job is great. Your kids are great. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden it's not. And you don't know why. And that is a very frustrating place to be in. I've been there multiple times too, where I'm just like, hey, everything was working fine. Like my social media is great. Business is great. Life is great. What is happening? And that is because the new identity that you want to jump into that makes more money, or you know, accelerates in your career and all these things, there's some energetics that are off in your life somewhere, and they're very subtle. The more consciously aware that you become, the subtler these things become. And sometimes I'll talk about shadow timelines. For those of you who are into timelines, shadow timelines are looking very similar to the one that you're on, but they're slightly off. And sometimes the universe, okay, again, you will see just how far that you will go down that timeline and allow things to be out of misalignment before you snap back onto your more preferable timeline. It's like, how long are we willing to take less than? How long are we willing to allow things in our life that we know that shouldn't be there? Or how much are we willing to take something because it's good enough? That's a shadow timeline. That's what ends up happening when you consciously quantum jump. You start encountering those. And I don't want to make it sound like it's scary, because honestly it's helping you with your intuition. It is helping you tap into multidimensional you at a much deeper level, because you have to hear yourself very clearly. Like your internal spiritual ear, those intuitive nudges, they're real loud when you first start on your spiritual awakening journey, but they get quiet when you're going further, because the alignment becomes like so thin for you to walk on that line, right? But what that's doing when it narrows like that is it's getting you to your optimal timeline so much faster. So much faster. Sometimes you have to say no to things that look like the things that you want in order to get the things that you want to come in. And there have been many times where I have said, okay, I'm ready for a new identity. I'm ready for the quantum jump. Like, I'm ready to do this. And then I'll bring myself something that looks similar. And I'll be like, okay, well, that's good enough. And then it backfires. And then I end up not feeling fulfilled, or like I internally know something is off, it's not quite right, but it's because I didn't listen to my intuition. And that was coming from low self-concept, low self-esteem, low confidence, and just like, oh, I'll just take what I could get because of filter lenses, because of childhood trauma, because of societal programming and things. So I also don't want you to say, you know, oh, well, this has happened to me, so obviously I'm not doing it right. Again, what perception are we looking through? Because one person could say, oh, I'm on a shadow timeline, or I wasn't quite headed in the right direction, so that means that like I'm bad, or I'm not good enough, or you know, just whatever. Or you could say, this is pointing me in a direction to help me understand myself better. This is where we start to let go of shame and regret and guilt, because those are very heavy, dense emotions that don't do nothing for you but make things worse. And we just say, well, it was a lesson that I learned. I do not see anything as failures anymore. There are no failures. It is a growth moment. Once I had that perception shift, it took off so much pressure and so much weight. I was like, yeah, we just learn and grow continually. Okay. Maybe we don't make the same choices last time, but that doesn't mean anything about us as a person, right? Because your consciousness, like you only know what you know when you know it. So we can't feel bad or regretful over self when you didn't have the tools and resources that you do, right? And so sometimes you got to oscillate and quantum jump a couple times before you fully set onto that new timeline. But when you do, you're going to find so much more strength within self and be able to hear your intuition so much clearer, because you had to quote unquote make those mistakes of not listening. So you're actually fine tuning. You are amplifying your abilities to understand yourself and know what your preferable timeline is. So if that helps anybody today, if you needed to hear that, I just feel like somebody did. Every time I do these workshops, what comes through is very different. So maybe somebody needs to hear that. Okay. So stepping outside of your comfort zone, this is where the subconscious grooves come in. Like if you're doing the same thing every single day, you're driving the same way to work, you're going to the same restaurants, like just seeing the exact same people, you're not leaving any room for the universe to bring you different stuff, because your subconscious is on autopilot. It's just like, yep, we wake up, we do this, and you know, that's it. Okay. So you're just going to get the same results. So this is where the safety trauma response thing starts kicking in. Okay, because some people are like, oh, well, I'm too nervous to go try new things or meet new people, or, you know, then we're going to get the same results. And I've been there. I used to have extreme social anxiety, like really bad social anxiety. That was a narrative that I was holding. It was real. It was real because a lot of people had hurt me in my life. And so I saw people as scary and bad. And my inner children were just looking for more people, right? To do that because of the programming. And I realized one day, I was like, oh, that's an identity that I'm attached to that's actually holding me back. And the more that I say that over myself, the more it makes it true. And it did. And so one day I had to say, you know what? I'm not identifying with that anymore. I don't have social anxiety. I am, and I know some, like that might seem really silly, but what happened was I said, I'm not identifying with that. I don't have social anxiety. I'm not saying that anymore. What I am saying is I'm working on my confidence. I'm working on my people skills. I'm working on enjoying myself around other people. I'm working on trying new things and new experiences. And I got used to being uncomfortable. To this day, whenever I do something new, I feel like I want to throw up. Anytime that, like, even before I got on here, super nervous. Okay. Anytime I do lives, workshops, coaching sessions, like go somewhere new, meet new people, I get sweaty, I feel nauseous, I feel like I'm going to pass out, and I don't want to go. Because that fear of the unknown is so strong. It's like, well, that's an unknown variable. Anything could happen. Yeah, anything could happen, but what if the best thing happens? What if you have an amazing time? What if you meet a person that's going to help you in your life and your business, or offer you something super amazing? Or, there's just like there's an equal chance of something happening bad as there is something to happen good. Whichever one that you want to attach to, that's the one that usually happens. So that's where we get into like self-sabotaging and catastrophizing, and we're going to get into a little bit more. But when we're focused on the negative, that's what you end up pulling in, as a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were talking about Delulu land, or being delusional. And I know we've all heard people say that before about, oh, well, you just have to be like positively delusional, right? And a lot of people like scoff at that and say like, oh, well, that's irrational. And this creator was like, you've been living in negative delusional land the whole entire your life. Most people. That is from a physiology evolutionary standpoint, or trauma, because when we're cave people, okay, you had to look for the worst case scenario to survive. Like, yeah, you do need to know where there's a tiger, or where there's other people that could hurt you, or like a waterfall around the corner. So like your perceptual lenses are to keep you safe. And that might be what your inner children and past versions are doing too, from a biology standpoint, or maybe they're doing that because trauma happened to you. But there is a point that you have to come in as the higher self and say like, hey, I get it. I know that we did that for safety, but we're not in those places and spaces anymore. And I'm not saying be unsafe. Like, let's not just go wild and be places that we don't really need to be, okay? But there are things that you can do to mix up the energy in your life you're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Anytime that I've had major growth and evolution is when I said, you know what, I'm very scared and very afraid to do this because it's new, but I'm going to do it anyway because it means that I'm going to grow as a person. Like before I started making content, I wanted to be, I want to be a life coach. I want to be spiritual energy healer and all these things. And I was so petrified to make content because I was worried about other people's perceptions. I was worried about them calling me cuckoo witch, I was worried about my friends and family finding out, all these things. And I had to just look at myself in the mirror, like energetically mirror, or the real mirror, and say like, do you want to become the person that you want to become or not? Because what we're doing right now is not going to get us there. And you're going to have to push through that fear in order to become that person. And I said, you know what? You're right. And I would cry before I made videos. I would cry during I made videos. I would cry afterwards. I would feel like I'm going to throw up. They were not good videos when I first started. We love old sage. Okay. But it was a very rough journey. But you know what? I became that person. And I am now somebody that doesn't have social anxiety. And a whole other plethora of things in my life. But I did that through saying, you know what? I am going to be afraid either way. I am going to be uncomfortable either way. You can either be afraid and uncomfortable of being stuck and stagnant, or you can be uncomfortable and afraid and making forward movement. Either way, you're going to be afraid and uncomfortable. Either one. So it depends on, do you want to be, under those umbrellas in the old life, or do you want to be under those umbrellas in the new life? Because I can be one to tell you like that stuff is always there. And I wish somebody had told me that when I was a lot younger, or, in the earlier stages of my consciousness, because I always thought that, I'd wake up one day and just be confident, or not have social anxiety, or, could do these things that I wanted to do. And I wish somebody had said that to me, like, hey, you still gonna feel that way. Okay. Every level that you move up, whether it's financially, career, relationships, whatever, you're gonna feel that way anytime it's something new. And you have to look yourself and say, would the person who I want to be do this right now? And did that happen overnight? No. There are many a time where I, backpedaled, or, imposter syndrome kicked in, or, fears and doubts and worries, or like other people's fears and doubts and worries. So I don't want to make it sound like, oh, like I just woke up one day and it was different. It was a lot of tumultuous shadow work that I had to go through, and crying on the bathroom floor, and questioning myself, and berating myself, and all the same things everybody's working through. But what I hope you take away from this is, as we get into like personifying your higher self, is a question I ask myself is, would the person who is living in that identity that I want to be in, like real future me, would she do this? Would they do this? And if the answer is yes, then we got to do it, because that's the only way you get there. Okay, so I just want you to know, like, from somebody that's sitting on the other side, like maybe you want to be content creator, energy healer, coach, own a business, you know, make more money, whatever. As somebody who's there, I'm just gonna let you know that stuff is always there. Okay, at least from my experience and from my friends who are also high achievers. They still go through this every time. Okay, we're gonna check the chat here. Okay, I know I went on a tangent there, but you know what, you get when it's coming through, you gotta go. Okay. Yes, I need to hear that. That social anxiety is the exact thing holding me back from all the things in my life coming into my life. Yeah, it's a narrative, again, based on past trauma. So we need to take away from this, like, hey, maybe I am socially anxious. Okay, and that's because of things that have happened to me in the past. But at any time, I can choose to be in a new identity and slowly incorporate the new identity. Like, I know that, like, if you just wake up one day and you're like, oh, I don't have social anxiety, it doesn't exactly work like that. But the more that you can speak over yourself, like, oh no, that's the old me, we have the new identity as a confident person, or I'm working on my confidence, right? And you slowly start to implement changes. The universe is going to, like, I'm just going to give you all a heads up, okay? When you say, I want to change and I want to be a different person, the universe is going to challenge you. And it's you. Okay, I never want to make it sound like there's something outside of you, operant power, that's doing things to you, or it's you at different perceptual lenses. Okay. Your source, you're the creator. So, like, when I said years ago, when I said I want to hold stronger boundaries with people, all of a sudden all the people in my life started checking my boundaries, like all of them. And I was like, what the heck? I said that I want to hold better boundaries and I'm not going to let people walk all over me and all this stuff. And now they're trying to do it. Well, the only way that you can clear a karmic lesson or grow and evolve is to be triggered. Like, that's like, you can't heal. Well, you can to a certain extent, but you can't just always heal with you alone in your room. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have like circumstances around you to help you, like boss levels, right? Like, oh, I cleared this one out. Here we go. I cleared this one out. So I just want to give a heads up, like with social anxiety, if you say, I'm not socially anxious, right? That happened to me too. All of a sudden, people around me started asking me, like, hey, do you want to go do this? Do you want to go do this? Do you want to go to this party? You want to go to this event? And I had a choice to say yes, or I had a choice to say no. If I say no, sometimes you should say no, but the good things, if I say no, I identify with the old identity. But if I say, you know what, I'm terrified to do that because it's going to kick up, you know, stuff, but I'm going to do it anyway, and then I go, now I am becoming the new identity because I made a different choice. Then you're quantum shifting into a parallel reality. You are oscillating more on the side of, oh, this is the new me. And the more that you do that, the more it pulls you into the new timeline and the new identity. You don't have to do it overnight, right? I'm not saying you have to do this every single day. But when opportunities present themselves and you're like, okay, well, this is a safe space that I can practice this, it's going to help you make that forward movement. Okay, my friend asked me if I was delusional when I told her I'm selling everything I own and traveling around the world with my family. It's kind of a new favorite thing to be right now. Yeah. Again, you can have whatever self-fulfilling prophecy you want to have. You can always be looking at the negative and worst case scenario, and then you end up drawing those things into yourself. Or we can slowly start to, or not even slowly, you can just start to focus on the positive things that are happening in your life, and that universal algorithm will catch you. It will help you get to that most optimal timeline. But we got to check our self-sabotaging thought behaviors, and we're going to get into that. I go through social overstimulation, especially when I'm going through a transformation. Like I have to get really quiet. Yeah, sometimes that happens too. Like sometimes you need to be in the void space hermit mode to like reflect. That's a little bit different than like subconsciously choosing to stay in comfortability. Like there was a time when I was like super, like again, socially anxious, but I was like choosing to stay in that identity. And then there's other times where I go out where I do get overstimulated because I'm a very hypersensitive person. So I might be like, okay, maybe I don't go to that party because my central nervous system is already like dysregulated. Right? So, or maybe I really need to do some shadow work, so I need to stay at home. So different vibes. So we always need to, like in that scenario or future scenarios, ask, why am I doing this? Or why am I not doing it? Right? Like dig deeper. Always ask yourself why. If you keep on asking yourself why and you get an answer, and then you ask yourself why again, and then you get an answer, and then you ask yourself why again and get an answer, usually you can get to the root of it. Because sometimes your brain be trying to trick you. Okay, your brain's very, your ego and your brain are very elusive, okay, with things, and they will be very subtle about the way they're trying to trick you, and we're going to get into that too. But you got to ask yourself why, because sometimes your multidimensional self, your higher self, is going to give you a different answer than your human brain and your ego, because they're trying to keep you safe. So they're going to try and trick you. Okay, your trauma. So asking why, right? Or maybe you need rest. Maybe you need to chill out. That might just be the simple why answer. Okay, I have to leave early. Love this workshop. Thank you so much, Sage. I'll catch a replay piece to everyone. Okay, bye, Thomas. Bye. It's good to see you. And then you'll be entered in for the giveaway too. So, all right. Okay, so we are going to take a 5-minute break so I can run to the restroom. And then we're going to get into manifesting in the 3D versus the 5D. Okay, so we're going to meet back in 5 minutes. And then if anybody has any questions or comments, you can leave them here, and I will be right back. Okay, everybody, we are back. Okay, so manifesting in the 3D versus 5D. So this is kind of coincide with how we're shifting as a collective as well, because we all know that we were in a very like masculine age, and now we're shifting kind of into the feminine, or we are shifting into the feminine age over here. And that is not with gender necessarily. That's just the energetics of things, taking action, being in flow, just different vibes. Okay. So with the old way of manifesting, it is taking action steps outside of yourself and then seeing the internal shift, right? But now what we're being asked to do is make the internal shift first and then take the action steps, because doing it that way it's so much easier to manifest that way. Okay. And that is actually how you shift identities a lot quicker and bring in your manifestations with a lot more speed, because you are having to embody the energetics of the person that you're becoming that has those things in the future, right? So you're becoming a vibrational frequency match instead of trying to do all this like kind of like hustle grind work over here to try and find those energetics outside of you. And so it's a whole new way of manifesting that we are getting into. That causes a lot of disturbances with people, because there are so many of us that have been hyper masculine energy, me included, for a very long time. I've always been a very goal oriented person. I take tons of action steps. And so this new manifesting is, okay, before we do that, we need to sit down and get in the feeling state, in the emotional state first, because then you're going to take completely different action steps. Completely different action steps. When I am, and I'll give an example, okay? It's very more tangible. So I recently opened this thing called the Cosmic Community, which I'll tell y'all more about at the end. But it was a community that I was building where people could come together and learn about inner child healing and manifesting and just all these esoteric metaphysical topics, right? Very excited about it. It was called the School of Magic originally. And I love teaching. Love teaching. Okay. But I, in my own journey, was feeling like a pivot in what I want to be helping people with. Instead of helping them with like tools and resources, I wanted to be helping them with their self-concept, like building their confidence and their self-esteem and helping them step into the bigger version of themselves. And so I hit this rock in a hard place. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I need some type of overarching goal for these community members. And it was causing me a lot of frustration because every action step that I took was not leading anywhere. That is because I was trying to originally lead that group from the old identity, from like old Sage. Okay. Because I had already quantum shifted onto a new timeline. And so I said, you know what? I am going to put all that down right now. Okay. Because it's not working. Okay. And I'm just going to be in a reflection space, in a void space, if you will. And that's fine that we're there because it means there's a shift about to happen. And so I kind of just let it sit for a minute. And I said, you know what? I'm going to think about who is future Sage. And that's what we're going to be doing together here. Okay. Not y'all with me, but as your own person, your own identity. But I was like, I'm going to envision what her future looks like. Okay. Like way out in the future. What kind of car is she driving? What kind of home does she have? What kind of, or how is she helping people? What kind of money does she have in the bank? What kind of lifestyle is she living? So I stopped worrying about what I'm doing right now and tapped into who is that? So I lay down and I started feeling those emotions coming up, right? And I started crying my eyes out because I was like, oh my God, I did it. Now, I've been working with my imagination for a long time, so that might be a little bit more difficult. So for some people, if you're just starting to do that, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, but I was literally there in my mind. And I was just so overwhelmed with gratitude for myself because I was like, all those hard times that we have experienced in all of the trials and tribulations, I just kept going and I got us here. And I felt that to the core of my being, that I was her. And I'm sitting in my dream home with her now, and I'm her talking to past me now. Okay. And I was like, do you want to talk about what's going on? And she was, and me in the current was like, yeah, I'm stuck. I'm blocked. I don't know what to do. And she was like, okay, first of all, take some pressure off of you. You're causing so much pressure on yourself. And she was like, this is what I need you to do. She was like, this is all we did. This is it. This is the answer. All you had to learn how to do is get in here and become me, even if it's momentarily, because that's actually how you quantum shift. You learn how to hold the energetics of who you want to become more and more and more. And then all of a sudden you're them. It literally starts in your imagination, because let me tell you what happened. Okay. I'm in the kitchen in my mind talking to her, and she's like, hey, why don't you do this instead? And she gave me the directions to take the school in. And as soon as she said it, I felt this huge weight come off of me. And I said, yep, that's it. It literally took 15 minutes of me getting in there and embodying her energetics for me to get the download. And then I completely switched what we were doing in the group. And it felt so in resonance with my soul. And I could tell with the people that are in the group that they were like, yeah, this is great. And we switched to becoming like, hey, we're going to achieve our goals together. This is going to be a high vibe group for light workers and empaths who are high achievers that want to get these goals going and they want to motivate and love one another. We're switching to like, hey, we're going to get these goals done and we're going to help each other, because we'll get into that a little bit. But complete shift in 15 minutes. But that's because I took an action step that future me would take instead of trying to take an action step based on where my consciousness is right now. You can shift into future you consciousness, even if it's momentarily. That's what meditation and like in connecting with your higher self, it's opening up the channel lines so you can hear them more clearly. Because the action steps that I'm taking right now, sometimes those don't coincide with future me. I'm just burning my wheels. And I know we've all been there before, where we're just like, I'm not making forward movement. Nothing is working. That's because you're you. Okay? And not always. That's not representative always. Sometimes we are making a lot of forward movement in our current state. But I know we've all been there where we're like, it ain't working. You need to get in your imagination and figure out what kind of action steps they're taking, because they're very different than what you're doing right now. So you can consciousness jump forward and then relay the information back to you. So that's what this is about. But I'm going to teach y'all a little bit how to do that as well. Okay. But you see, I could have taken 8 million action steps in 3D manifestation land over here, which I was trying to do and it wasn't working. And instead I went in and changed my energetics internally first. 15 minutes, done. Now, do I remember to do that always? No, because I'm still processing not doing that type of like masculine jump first, right? Every time I remember to do the 5D manifesting, so much easier. Get the downloads, the intuitive pings, feel a million times better because I'm already future me, right? But again, I'm still going through that process too. So we all learning and growing together. Okay, that's what I mean. Like sometimes these behavioral patterns, like my behavioral pattern of wanting to take action steps before being in alignment, that still catches me up because it's programming. It's the way I've always done things. And so that's what I mean. Like I'm over here too going through it. So it's just you if you're doing that as well. Okay. Where do new manifesting rules come from? I wouldn't say they're like rules necessarily, you know what I mean? Like you have to listen to like what your intuition and discernment is telling you. Like I pick up on like a lot of like global energy and collective energy, and I talk to a lot of other energy healers and empaths and things because of the business that I do. So I can see where there's a bigger collective shift with the way that things are being headed and done. Right. And it is this type of manifesting is so much easier for people. So I'm not saying that this is the right way to do anything. Right. This is just my experience and what I see with other people collectively, like my data collection. But you have to do what works best for you too. Like you listen to your own intuition and discernment and what feels good in your body and your soul. So like all of these things that I'm sharing too, like these are based on my perceptual lenses. Right. So anytime you're listening to a coach, a healer, a guide, anybody, that might not be true for you. That might not be your beliefs or your values. Like, you know what I mean? So you have to ask yourself, does this feel good for me? But this is just my framework, right? For what I've seen working with clients and other people. But you make your own, you're the creator of your reality, right? And so I can offer you based on my personal experiences what's worked for me and other people. But that does not mean at all that it will work for you, right? So everybody's living in a completely different reality from one another, right? So check where you might just want to take a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here. Right? So you use your intuition and discernment. This is validating because that's what I kept talking about, but I don't know if it was an individual experience being in the masculine for so long that I only know how to do the external goals, not the internal shift. Yeah, so that's representative right there of like, oh, I have noticed this with like so many people shifting. And so that's why we're here today to talk about what I have seen has not only been beneficial for me, but a lot of other people doing this. But that, again, you have to do what's right for you. Okay. Okay, so these are the principles of quantum manifestation that I have seen in my experience working with other people. Okay, again, this is my perspective. And I'm not saying that directly towards you. I'm just saying this for everybody. Always check your own compass. Okay, this is just working with thousands of clients and other energy healers that I have seen that this is the reoccurring themes for like 99% of the time. But again, you have a 1% experience that's wildly different. So when people come to me and they're like, hey, my manifestations are not manifesting, they're not coming through, I'm stuck and stagnant, I don't know what to do. This is what we always go back to. Okay, this is a formula. Okay, that you can check off and ask yourself, is something out of alignment, is something off here? If something is off or out of alignment, if you look at one of these areas, 9 times out of 10, it will get you going in the right direction. Okay, and they go in layers as well. So is your central nervous system regulated? If you are in fear and anxiety, it's very difficult to mitigate your thoughts and to feel happy, good emotions. Like when you were in survival mode, all that other stuff, all the stuff below it doesn't really matter. So anytime I'm working with people, I'm like, we have to get your central nervous system regulated, because when it's dysregulated, you're in your bottom chakras and you're just trying to do the best that you can. And we're not really worried about imagination and creativity. It cuts you off from your upper chakras because you're just trying to survive. You have to be more of like in a flow state in order to tap in up here or see the realm of possibilities for you, or think different thoughts or have different emotions. Like, because we're humans, right? Like, this is a little esoteric wooey, but we're multidimensional beings, but then we're also human beings. So you have to take care of your physical vessel first, because your physical vessel is the channeler. Like sometimes we're like, oh, like these upper chakras and stuff. You have physical senses that you perceive information from through your human body. So a lot of people want to like upgrade their spiritual gifts, and I'm like, are we drinking a lot of water? Are we grounding? Are we taking salt baths? Are we eating good food? Because all of those things are going to be determinant of how open your channels can be. Because your physical body comes first, because that's the experience that you're having, right? I'm not saying that you don't take care of yourself, you can't hear downloads and intuition and things like that. But I can tell you, as somebody who does it professionally and around people that are, professionals at it, like the better you take care of your physical vessel, the more you're going to be able to perceive and manifest as well. Let me fix my screen here, my camera. Okay, what kind of thoughts are you thinking? That's the next one. It's difficult to regulate your thoughts when you're in fear and anxiety and catastrophizing. So if you have a regulated central nervous system, it's less easy to attach to negative thoughts, because you're calm, because you're relaxed, because you chill. Now we can be the observer of our thoughts and say, maybe I don't align with that. Maybe I want to think something differently and try and install new programming. What kind of emotions are you feeling? When we're talking about manifesting, it's not actually about the physical manifestation, it's the emotion that it'll bring to you, right? And sometimes people get very hyper focused on like, oh, I want the house, I want the career, I want the car, I want, all these things. What you're really chasing is a feeling and an emotion underneath that. Maybe it's safety and security, maybe it's happiness, joy, bliss. And so again, if we're dysregulated and experiencing fear and anxiety and anger and frustration, which emotions are fine, we're going to talk about those in a minute, but if our natural state is anxiety and fear and anger and all those things, it's going to be a little bit difficult to become a frequency match for your manifestations. And so that's why we got to kind of work in a layeral system here. How is your self-concept? Once you're regulated and you got thoughts, new programming going in and new emotions that you're feeling, do you think that you're worthy and deserving of your manifestations? Sometimes that's a lot of self-awareness that we have to like go into, and like maybe trauma digging as well, to figure out like where the roots of those things are coming from if we do not believe that. Because self-concept is everything. What you believe you deserve is what you're going to get. Like there was a time where I didn't think that I was worthy and deserving of being anything but broken poor, because that's all I had seen. It wasn't my fault. It was programming and the reality that I grew up in. But I had to like really, really, really work at my self-concept and my confidence and self-esteem and how I view myself and what I think that I deserve, in order to build a new self-concept of like, yeah, I am a beautiful starbeam, just like everybody here. And you deserve to have a prosperous and abundant life, just because. Not because you earn it, just because. After self-concept, what beliefs do you hold about what's possible? So your thoughts and emotions tied together create your beliefs. You have negative thoughts attached with negative emotions, it cultivates beliefs. But it also does that in a positive direction as well. So if you work on your thoughts and emotions, we can install those new beliefs around our self-concept. So it's like, do I believe I'm capable of having $100 million in the bank? Do I believe that I'm capable of being a public speaker? Do I believe that I can own a business? Right? So if you don't believe that you're capable of that, but you want it, but there's something running energetically that's telling you that you can't for some reason, maybe because you didn't have examples in your life, or societal things that are being told to you, like that stuff's got to be checked. Otherwise, like it is not just going to override itself, right? And then can you feel it is real in your imagination? Once we start working on these other things, now you can get in your mind's eye and start to really embody those energetics and be like, yeah, I can, even if it's for 5 seconds, I can feel what it would be like to have $100 million, and I can tell you how you feel that. So how do you think that you would feel if you had $100 million? What emotion? Happiness, joy, bliss, magic, whimsy. Okay. A lot of people are like, well, how would I know what $100 million feels like if I don't have it? Because again, it goes back to the emotions. What emotion would that bring you? You can feel that now. That's where we started getting into like gratefulness and the abundance that you already have around you. Because like if you drink a cup of coffee in the morning and it makes you feel like $100 million, like it brings you joy, you can literally lay down on your bed and get in your mind's eye, think about that cup of coffee and how much joy it brings you. And once you feel that joy inside and like it elicits, switch on over to the $100 million and say like, oh yeah, this is what $100 million feels like. Because it's all the same frequency. Joy is joy. Like all abundance is just abundance. All feelings are just feelings. So like me, I went and saw some baby ducks earlier that just brought me a lot of like peace and happiness. I can think about those baby ducks right now and bring those emotions up within me and then encode my manifestations and be like, yep, this is what the next step in my career looks like, or this is what my soul tribe feels like. It all goes back to we're just looking to feel the emotions. And so sometimes those anchor points in your imagination of what is already bringing me this, let me really think about it and sit in it. Like my kids laughing, me going on a romantic date with my partner, whatever that is for you, pull that up in your body and really feel it, and then start thinking about your manifestations. Because where I see most often people are blocked is because when they think about their manifestations, they get stressed and anxious. Because they're like, how, when, where, I'll never have it, all these things. You're actually repelling it away from you. Because your physical body is saying, that doesn't feel good. I don't like that. I don't like when you think about that. So it actually keeps it further away from you. So I always say, like, don't think about the manifestations. Your soul knows what you want. Okay. Your soul's not going to forget. Okay. Like, we don't have to hyper focus on them. Like, sometimes people will be like, I keep saying over and over. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you keep saying it over and over again if you don't feel good when you say it. Like, because you're making it worse at that point. Okay. So what we can do is, and we're going to get into this activity together, but you can have these like micro and macro goals, and when like pick an emotion to attach to it, and where can I feel that in the here and now, and think about that and sit in it. Now think about your manifestation, because you raised your frequency to be a match. And now we're teaching our body and our central nervous system, hey, these manifestations actually feel really good when I think about them, instead of like scary and fearful and when's it going to happen. Now your body's like, I just want to feel that way. I just want to feel good. I don't care what it is. Because sometimes people are very hyper focused on one manifestation, like a house. Okay. If you're so hyper focused on this house over here instead of like just the emotions, you might be missing out on all of these other manifestations that the universe is trying to bring you, the universe. Because you're like, no, house, 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 house. What if you just said, I am open and available to all things that bring me joy? And then the universe is like, here's 3 houses. Here's enough money to buy 5 houses, right? Because you're radiating that much joy. So if manifestation and the material things are stressing you out, don't focus on that. Your soul knows what you want. Focus on the abundance and gratefulness of the things that you are already bringing you those emotions. And they'll come to you naturally because you're a match. You're a frequency match for them. If you feel joy and happiness, like it opens the channel for you to receive them way faster because you don't have resistance, right? Anytime that we're waiting on something or wanting something and we're like, where is it? When is it? You know, all these things, it's going to stay over here. Okay, because the energy that you're giving is I'm wanting, I'm waiting. And the universal algorithm, what you place energy and intention into is what you get more of. So you actually manifest more waiting and more wanting. So you're blocking your own receiving channels. So instead, just focus on the emotions over here. Okay, make your list, make your manifestation list and everything, make them, put them away for a minute, and then just focus on this over here. And you'll become a match. How long can you embody the new identity? So this is what I mean. Every time that I go in my imagination to connect with future me, like the identity that I want to be, I become her a little bit more. Like maybe it's 1%, and then 2%, and then 4%, and then 7%. And I'm making different actions or taking different actions. I'm making different choices. I'm feeling different emotions. I'm having different thoughts. And then all of a sudden I become her. I have done this over and over and over again. Now I more consciously do it, and it's a lot easier because I understand these concepts. But every time that I make time for future me, it has a huge payoff. I'm able to make so much more forward movement more quickly because the channel line is open to hear her, right? Or to hear future you. And so the more that you do that and you make time for yourself, the more you start to, like I said, become them. And now you're a new identity. Okay. Sometimes it can happen very quickly. So like doing things like this, you're trying to take all these 3D action steps over here and trying to like orchestrate and coordinate the universe and like be very controlling and all this stuff. If you just come over here and do this stuff, like the universe will realign things to make it very easy for you. It's like you meet the right person, you have the right conversation, you step into the right shop because you're in line and in tune with your compass because you're already embodying the energetics. Okay. Oh my goodness, long story, but I ended up leaving my last job because of baby ducks. Oh wait, yeah, that's a good thing. I had to rescue them, but really I was rescuing myself. Oh, I love that. Wow, how beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yay to those baby ducks for getting you out there. That whole speech on blocking manifestations when those negative emotions would be a great TikTok. I was like, where's the heart button? LOL. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there was a time in my life too where I was like, so, and that still happens sometimes where I'm so frustrated, like, where is my stuff? Okay. But when I say where is my stuff, right? I'm focused on the wanting and the waiting where I can just be happy now, be in a state of gratefulness and abundance, and then it just naturally comes in, or I get a lot closer to it. You know what I mean? And sometimes things are just not the right chapter. Like sometimes what you think that you want and need are not what future you looks like. I've learned that lesson too. Like, oh yeah, gimme. Actually, no, that would have not been a great decision for us to have that, or a great thing for us to have that right now. Okay, like if future you, let's do an example. If future you is wanting to give you $20,000, but the consciousness that you're in right now is going to like utilize that in some way that like is not going to be beneficial for you to start your business. Like let's say you just buy $20,000 worth of fun tip. Okay. And your higher self is like, hey, I meant for you to use that as a starter for your business so you can get out of your 9 to 12 or your 9 to 5 or your 12-hour shifts, but you're over here spending all fun. You know what I mean? So sometimes you gotta have like consciousness shifts, and it's just not your season for that yet, because you're not in the right consciousness yet to utilize those things, those manifestations, right? Or you're not in the right consciousness to have the right conversation with the right person, or you're still working on your social anxiety, so you're not going to go in the store that you need to set up the manifestation. Does that make sense? So, okay. Yeah, fun tip. I don't know why I said that, but I just roll with it. Okay, embracing your ego and self-limiting beliefs. So what I learned in my journey is we will like beat our ego up and self-limiting beliefs all the live long day. Be like, oh, you're terrible, you're bad, ego, why are you trying to take me down? I need to have an ego death. No, you don't. Okay, because your ego and your self-limiting beliefs are there to help you grow. When you embrace them and you say, thank you, I love you so much because I know what you're trying to do is keep me safe, and I appreciate that. I'm so thankful for that. And you probably help keep my inner children and my past versions safe and on track. And that's beautiful. Because if you didn't have an ego and self-limiting belief, you would not grow. You would just be the same person. Like, you got to have some type of springboard. You see what I'm saying? If you don't have the challenges and like the trigger things that come up, like you can't grow and evolve and jump consciousness. And so like I watch people like mentors, like millionaire mentors, and they're like, yeah, those self-limiting beliefs never go away. Like, they check me at every single level that I was at. But that helped me shift into my next version. And so something that I have done is to just embrace and say, like, I'm so appreciative of you. Thank you. I'm going to make a different choice because I'm at the wheel of consciousness and I don't have to align with the things that y'all are saying. I am the CEO of my life. Y'all can be on the board and advise me, but that doesn't mean that I have to do what you say. You know what I mean? They need to be in the passenger seat and you at the wheel. But when you do that, you're allowing space for them to be heard and seen. Like, it's just like a small child that's like, mom, 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 mom. Like, they're just going to keep on until you acknowledge them. And it's okay that they're there, right? These beliefs and all these things are running in the background. The more that you resist them, the more intense they become. Because your ego and your self-limiting beliefs are trying to keep you safe. Like, they love you so much. Okay, they're like, please just stay the same person because we know what the results are going to be. So in actuality, like, they love you. You don't have to adhere to what they're saying, though. It's just like your inner children. Like, if you have behavioral patterns and triggers that your inner children like learned, that's fine and everything. But as the higher self, we can't let that continue. Right? We're not going to berate them for why they're doing the behavioral pattern, but we're going to come in as the multidimensional higher self and say, let me explain to you why we can't do this or why this is not beneficial. But we're not trying to get rid of them, right? Because we still want to grow and evolve. And so when I hit that place in my consciousness, it stopped being so intense. The thoughts stopped being so intense, and the feelings and like the catastrophizing and the anxiety thoughts, because they just want to be seen and heard. They want to be like, hey, I'm very scared because you're trying to shift identities. Can you just listen to what I'm saying? And I acknowledge them, and then we just move on. Right? Is it always easy? No. Okay. It's a lot easier than it was in the past, though, because I'm not trying to resist them and then them get louder and louder and louder and louder. They want to know you got a plan. Okay, we're going to get that out with your inner children in a minute. You are not your thoughts or emotions. The simple fact that you can decide whether you align with an emotion or a thought or not, it means that you're the observer. You can say, nope, that's not for me. That's with the old identity. That means you're not them. You're the awareness behind that. Same thing with your emotions. Those are just things that you channel. There was a time in my life when I was going through that anxiety and depression. I thought that was going to be my forever state. And sometimes it does feel like that. But when you embrace your emotions instead of resisting them, they just want to be acknowledged. And like, how would you know how would you know what happiness and bliss and joy and peace feel like if you didn't know what anger and frustration and loss and grief and shame feel like? Like, you have to have some type of like contrast, right? Duality. So when you look at it in that lens and say like, oh, my thoughts and my emotions are literally just trying to alert me that something is out of alignment or something is in alignment. Like, if you have a lot of emotions and thoughts that are like, you're not good enough, you're, all this stuff throwing up, that's an opportunity for you to say, okay, why? This is not my forever state, but why do I feel that way now? Why am I having these thoughts? It's a chance for you to go deeper within so that you can clear the path for the better emotions. Are you going to feel good all the time? No, because life would be life, and you know what I mean? But I ran away from my emotions for so long because trauma, and nobody taught me how to process them. But now the understanding that I'm at is, yeah, if I just take some time to process that sadness and that anger, it'll flow through, and then I can just feel better and then be refocused on my manifestations, on my emotional manifestations. So now, instead of me having 6 months of anger and sadness, I can have a day of anger and sadness or 2 days of anger and sadness, and then we move on. But when you excuse me, when you first start processing your emotions, it's not easy. It hurts. It's a very intense process because you probably have PTSD and trauma that have been in there for years. And sometimes that's not your stuff. Sometimes, like, you're a higher consciousness as an adult on their spiritual awakening journey, but you have inner children that have been holding on to those things for a long time and they haven't come out of your body yet. And so some of that stuff's not yours technically anymore. It's old stuff, but you still got to process it with your inner children. Like, it doesn't just go away. I think we all know that it's stuff that has to be looked at. And sometimes that just takes time, and that's okay. But the more that we lean into these things instead of running from them or resisting them and trying to get them to go away, the quicker you can traverse through them and process through them and then feel better overall in life and align with those manifestations as well. So when you start to quantum manifest, it can kick up old stuff. Like, if you want to become a new identity, you have to face the old one. And sometimes you can start to go through a grieving process. I've been through that multiple times where it almost feels like a part of you is like dying, passing away. And I know that sounds like, if you haven't experienced that, that sounds weird. You have to let me know in the comments if you've experienced that, but it's like a piece of you is not there anymore. And it's not you that's disappearing. It's the old narratives, it's the behavioral patterns, it's the way that your subconscious has functioned. And it causes like these massive disruptions because it's like, what are you doing? Why are you changing our identity? Because when you quantum shift into a new timeline, a new identity like that, you are literally changing your DNA in cells. You are changing all of your energetics into a brand new person. When you take trauma out of your body and old thought patterns and all this stuff, you're not the same person. I'm not the same person that I was 6 months ago or a year ago. And it's because I reprogrammed all of that stuff in me, but my cells and my DNA are completely different because I think all the energetic changes. And so your ego is like, why are you trying to become a whole new person? Like, we like this version. Okay. That's where you have to come in and say like, hey, we are still us at a core soul level. We are actually taking the filters off. We are not, trying to step out into some unknown variable where we're going to fall on our face and everything's going to be scary and tower moments and all that stuff. Like, we are taking off all of the things that have kept us from who we really are. Right. And so you have to have those higher conversations with your ego and your self-limiting beliefs and your inner children too, and say like, hey, y'all aren't going anywhere. Like, y'all are coming with, everybody's coming with. We're about to talk about that with the inner children. Everybody come on the journey. Okay. What we're taking off is the stuff, the junk that doesn't work anymore. But when you do that and you attach to those old identities, it feels like a piece of you is passing away. And that's your ego trying to get you to stay the same. Like the other day, and I'm going to give a quick example, okay? And I know we're going to be running late on this workshop. I can already see. So if you can't stay for the whole thing, it's fine. Okay, you get to replay this because so we going in right now. Okay, so I was laying on my bed, and I take these 20-minute naps so I can get in my subconscious, because when you're in theta state, when you're kind of like that lucid dreamy, right? I know we've been there before, and it's like you're kind of conscious, but you're not quite conscious. You're kind of like having these like vision dreams, right? That's when you can reprogram your subconscious very easily. Okay. But I shifted identities recently, and the last couple times that I've laid down to take those like naps, these like really negative things were popping up, like irrational things that were causing me a lot of fear and anxiety. Like these things were like playing in my mind, like catastrophizing, and I like couldn't understand why that was happening. I was like, why do I keep having these like bad experiences? And then yesterday, actually, no, 2 days ago, I was laying down, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's my subconscious trying to scare me back into the old identity. It's trying to keep me in my comfort zone. It's like, hey, you're making all these changes. Let me scare you into being old you. Let me bring all this panic and fear and anxiety up in you for no reason, because that's how your mind and your ego be trying to trick you. It says like, hey, here's all these irrational thoughts and scenarios and things that could happen. Why don't you just say who you are? And I was in my subconscious, and I was like, no, we're not doing that. I know that you are very uncomfortable right now, and that I'm asking you to make a lot of changes, and we're not doing the same things that we were in the past, but we're going to keep on. Okay. Like, I love you for that. Thank you. I appreciate you, but I see what you're doing, and I'm not approving of that. We're not doing that behavior. Okay, because it's going to keep us exactly where we were. And we were so uncomfortable in that space because we have outgrown that container that we've been in. I am not going to allow my inner children and my past versions and me to stay on that timeline. I am making an executive decision, and we're pushing forward. Sometimes you have to be very direct with yourself. Like, you have to hold boundaries with yourself. And sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's not. But sometimes I'll have thoughts pop up in my head, and I'm like, no, I will not listen to that. I do not agree with that. That is not serving you, okay, or me. Okay, talking to my subconscious, like, we are not going down that train, okay, because that is not in resonance with who we are becoming. And so I just want to share that, because you have operant power to do that. Like, we love our body, we love our subconscious, but you are a consciousness outside of it. You have a mental body, you have a physical body, you have a spiritual body, you have an emotional body. They're all you, but you're also living a human experience that comes with like certain physiology things and evolutionary things. And sometimes you got to hold strong on the boundaries, okay, in order to shift into the new being. Okay, I for sure feel like I'm grieving myself. And tell me if this sounds dumb. Nothing sounds dumb. Okay. But I want to make like a timeline of sorts of my trauma and see how it comes up in my life now to release. Oh yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. Sometimes I'll recommend to people to write out your whole entire life story, which is going to bring up a lot of stuff. Okay. But if you look through the lens of, wow, look how amazing I am. Look how many things that I've grown through, how many consciousness jumps I've had, how many expansion moments, like how courageous and bold I've been throughout my life. It's easier to detach from the trauma. You can do that activity and look at it like, oh my God, like, look, you know what I mean? Or you can be like, wow, I'm so strong. Sometimes that will do a trauma release for you. She's like, yeah, look at me. I'm a warrior. Okay. But yeah, I think that's a good activity, but it will bring up a lot of emotions, and it will bring up your inner children, and it will like trigger things within, but that's a beautiful opportunity for you to come in as a higher self and help them work through that. Instead of being the trauma, you're helping them with the trauma. Two completely different ways of healing. Okay. And we have a couple more slides here, and then we're going to get into our goal activity. And I know we're running over, but it's okay. Reassuring your inner children that they are coming onto the new timeline. So when I do one-on-one sessions with people, and I'm going in to help them heal their inner children, like we actually meet with the consciousness of their inner child, like we talk to them, which is a really wild experience for people if it's the first time. And they're like, wow, it's me, but it's not me. Most often what I see is when people are stuck and stagnant, their inner child is afraid that they're not coming to the new timeline. They're afraid that they're being abandoned. They say, oh, you're trying to change into a new person because you don't like me or you don't love me because you have abandonment and trust wounds from childhood. That was a big pivot in my journey, is when I caught that behavioral pattern. I realized that they were so afraid to quote unquote shift or let me go because they thought that that meant they were going to disappear. And so they will make it so incredibly difficult for you to shift because of the abandonment and trust. And change is scary, right? Like sometimes kids are very afraid of change. Okay, or your past versions. And so if you can, when those things come up with your quantum shifting and you start to feel that anxiety around abandonment and trust of your life or yourself, right? You can go in as the higher self and say, hey, I love you so much and you're not going anywhere. Everybody is coming with inner children, past versions, ego, beliefs, all that stuff is coming with. What we're doing is letting go of junk. We're letting go of old behavioral patterns. We're letting go of ideas that didn't serve us or actions, but everybody's consciousness is coming together. And some of y'all watching, or if you're watching this in the future, you might feel your inner children relax when I say that. I make it such a big point when I'm doing shifts with myself or clients to specifically talk to their inner children and say, hey, ain't nobody getting left behind. Okay. We are all going towards a much better life filled with fun and joy and magic and whimsy and prosperity and abundance. We are all going together. If you have very deep abandonment and trust wounds, which I did, okay, and that's still something I have to like keep in check. I simply reminding them about that helps them relax. And you just saying like, I got you. Okay. You can trust me. I will always be here. That's what they need from you. They need they want reassurance. Okay. That you're going to be there for them. Okay. And you always will be. They're always going to come with. But when we're talking about inner child and teenage, you got to understand that they're not resonating on the same consciousness level as you. Like there's literally like a 5-year-old inside of you, okay? And like a 12-year-old and like a 15-year-old, like they're not at the same consciousness. Just like when you were a child, maybe you were going through some like really heavy negative things, and there was like this voice that was always like in the background saying like, it's okay, just keep going, it's going to be fine, I promise, just keep going. That was you now talking to them. Okay, that was you in the future as a higher self, just like there's a higher self of you right now that's telling you the exact same thing. That's saying like, just keep going, it's fine, I promise. Right? And they're saying, hey, I'm not leaving you, you're coming with, we're all shifting. So you got to talk backwards to the inner children and past versions too. So I want to share that in case it helps anybody. Oscillating between consciousness. So when you're quantum shifting, what happens sometimes is like you'll be like vibing like so high. You'll be like, yeah, I'm on my highest timeline. Everything's working out. Everything's working for me, you know, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you're like down in the dumps. You're like, none of this is working. I feel miserable. A tower moment, you know, who has been there before? It's like, and that can even happen the same day. Like you wake up and you're like, oh, everything's great. And then in the afternoon, completely different story. That is because you are still learning how to embody the energetics of the new you. And so there are going to be periods where you get in those like low phases and those low spaces. And that's where you have to consciously come in and talk to you in the present. Like there are many a time where I will go into my imagination, embody future me, and be talking to me right now and be like, girl, if you don't just chill out, okay, you are doing the most right now. Okay, but with love. Okay, saying that with love, but reassuring her, I've got you. I just need you to focus on these things that, we've been talking about and just chill out. Okay, because we get so frantic in survival mode and pushing our manifestations away that if you can just take a second to get in that higher state of consciousness and remind you that you're okay, it opens up everything. You get in your imagination, creativity, get the right downloads, listen to the intuition, but you can't do that from survival state. So sometimes we're doing this oscillating game, okay, and you think something's wrong because you haven't quite shifted over yet. You're just in training right now. You're in training, you got training wheels on before you become the new identity. Some people don't make the jump. There have been plenty of times when I said that I want to become a new identity and then it doesn't happen, and then 6 months go by. And that's because I wasn't ready yet. I was not consciously aware enough yet to fully make it over. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay, so I have been drinking energy drinks since I was 14, like every day, some multiple times a day, and I know that wasn't good for my body. And I'm not, there's no judgment if you do that, okay? But as a highly sensitive person, it was causing more like damage than, whatever. And because I'm neurospicy, I was like, oh, well, I need the caffeine to stay focused because I don't take ADHD medication. So those are all kind of like narratives that I was running. And I have tried to give up energy drinks for years and wasn't able to do it. And then one day I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm done with that. I'm not doing it. Every time that my body says that I want one, I'm going to say no. I'm going to hold a boundary with myself because future me doesn't do that. And then I stopped completely. That one day. I haven't had one since. It's been like weeks. But it took me years to be able to get to that point, right? Because I had to raise my consciousness up enough to be able to look at myself and be like, we're letting go of that. Right. So I don't want you to think you're doing something wrong if you haven't been able to let go of something, but like sometimes you're just going to oscillate until you finally make that choice that one day. Right. But the more that you stick with it, the easier it is to let go. Okay. Taking action steps from inspiration versus fear. So I was laying in my bed. I lay in my bed a lot to like meditate stuff. I was laying in my bed and I was so burnt out and exhausted. Like I was just wrecked. Okay. Because I had been pushing myself too hard. And these voices kept on coming up in my head. And they're like, oh, you should get up. You're not doing anything. You're being lazy. All these things that we hear ourselves say. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. My physical body needs to lay down and rest. Like I'm going to make a decision here that I do. It just is what it is. We're just going to lay here. We're going to watch RuPaul's Drag Race for like 5 hours. Okay. And eat popcorn. And then this other voice came up in my head and was like, hey, why don't you go on a walk? And normally I would be like, yeah, that sounds great. Because a walk, regulates your central nervous system. It gives you clarity and you just feel a lot better. So I was like, why? Why do you want me to go on a walk? I asked that voice. And the voice said, because you're not doing anything. So it tried to trick me. It tried to come from a place of shame and guilt to get me motivated. And I said, I will not take action steps based on shame and guilt because that's the old way of doing things. I said, my new identity takes inspired action because it feels good. And right now it doesn't feel good to take a walk. And like that is what I mean with you have to come in as a higher consciousness and asking yourself, why are we doing these things? Is this in alignment with future me? Because if it's not, then we need to make a different choice. Nobody is getting good results from making shameful and guilty decisions or action steps. So this is what I mean. Like we gotta be mindful of like how you're interacting with your ego and your thoughts, because they get real subtle with the way that they try and like hold you to where you're at. Okay, and it gets more subtle as you go along. They're like, oh, you're making forward movement. How about we do this? But there's a little bit of shame and guilt attached to it. Well, then you're going to get a little bit of shameful and guilty results. So just constantly asking yourself, why do I want to do these things is very beneficial. Okay. Okay, so personifying your next higher self. So when people are talking about wanting to shift into a new identity, sometimes it's too far out. You are trying to look at your life 10, 15, 20 years from now, which I love that. I love that for you and me. Like, that's amazing. But it's kind of hard to make that tangible for your subconscious, because there's like so many like consciousness jumps and evolution and growth in between that. And so you get overwhelmed and overstimulated, and then you don't go after the things. And so what I have found is beneficial is to just, who am I a year from now? Like, let me look at those big goals over here. Like, that's great and everything. But who am I just a year from now? Because when you focus on that, it's a lot easier to obtain. And so I'm gonna show you all how this framework works. And it has helped me shift time and time again, because I don't get overstimulated and overwhelmed. I just say, I'm just trying to make it to the next me. Okay. And then when I become that next me, then we'll focus on the me after that. Okay. And then that also sometimes shifts your macro goals. Like, things that I thought that I wanted, turns out that was just me at that consciousness level. Like, there was a time where I was going to school to become a clinical psychologist. Like, that was my lifelong dream. Like, I wanted to do that. Like, that's what we were doing. And that timeline started to not work. And I was like, well, I said I'm going to do it, and I'm not a quitter, so I'm going to do it. And then I stayed on that timeline for too long. And then eventually my higher self was like, oh, we get off that. Okay. And it was a very tumultuous time, because I thought that was the only way that I could really help people without being like a doctor, you know what I mean? And I didn't realize that my macro goal at that time was, actually, you want to be an energy healer and a coach. You don't want to sit in an office from 9 to 5. And not be able to help people with what you want to be able to help people with. And so I started trying to become higher self me, closer to me, because you never know if those macro goals are going to change. It's great to have them, absolutely, but you don't know what your future might look like. So focus closer to you, right? So when we are focused on the macro versus micro, I put macro and macro, I'm sorry, micro and macro goals. Micro are the smaller, closer to you. Macro are the bigger ones, okay? So if you have macro goals that are not exciting, it's not going to get you up and moving. Like, ain't nobody trying to get up out of the bed and work towards like these goals that are not exciting them. So you need to think big. Okay. Sometimes people are not thinking big enough. They're keeping themselves in very small containers. And I'm like, well, if you keep yourself in a small container, then you're going to be living a small container life. Okay. You can work on those beliefs and those thoughts and everything along the way, but shoot for the stars. Okay. Because that's what's going to keep you going. Now, the micro goals, the ones that are closer to you, that's how you get there. You don't need to know all 80 million steps. You need to know what are the first 10. And then once you first clear the 10, now we're on to 10 to 20. Now we're on to 20 and 30. That's going to give you the fuel and the motivation to keep on going. Like, if you're aimlessly wandering around with these macro goals and you're not taking tangible steps right now towards them, you're going to burn out. And you're going to be like, oh, it's not for me, or I'm not worth it, or, I'm not good enough of a person, or, whatever. So we got to make it more tangible for us in the here and now, so that you stay motivated and focused towards those bigger ones. Okay. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay. And then we talked about emotions, fuel for your manifestations. Okay. This is the last slide before we get into the goal setting activity. So we're going to take a 3-minute break so we can all get up, move around, and use the bathroom really quick. And this is probably going to go for 30 more minutes. and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. If you have questions or anything while I'm on the break, leave them in the comments, and then we'll be back in a second. Okay, everybody, we are back. Okay. So before we get into this goal setting activity, I just want to go over a couple things because we'll get into it. Okay. So when you are looking around at your life and you're like, wow, I feel really stuck and stagnant, or I see all these behavioral patterns that aren't serving me, or these thoughts or these feelings, and like I see where everything is kind of out of alignment right now. What sometimes happens is you jump to taking like so many action steps, and you're like, I gotta fix everything right now. Or I'm a failure, or like my life is gonna be horrible if I don't do it right this second. And what ends up happening is you overstimulate yourself, and then you end up not doing the things. Because oftentimes the people I talk to are very high achievers, and they're like, let's get it right now and change everything. And that's too much. Okay. I have been there myself, and I've tried to do that, and it ends up in disaster. It's kind of like when people are like not going to the gym all year long, and then New Year's rolls around and they're like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym every single day, Monday through Sunday. And then they miss a couple days and they're like, oh, well, that wasn't for me. I'm not good enough to stick to it. How about you just start with like 1 day a week or 2 days a week, and then build your tolerance up? Because that's what you're doing with a new identity. Like you have to build a tolerance up to the new way of doing things. Okay, so I'm going to show you all how to do that without overwhelming yourself. Let me know if that resonates with anybody, if that's been you in the past. Okay, feeling successful now. Before we go on to this venture, if you are constantly telling yourself, when I hit this growth moment, then I will feel successful, you will never feel successful. That has been me a large majority of my life, where I was like, okay, well, if I just do this one goal, or if I get this one achievement, then I'll feel complete and whole. And then when I meet that goal, it feels empty. And I'm like, what's next? And that is not fuel enough to go for your big dreams. And they will feel hollow and empty when you reach them. I can attest to that. That has happened over and over and over again in my life. And it wasn't until I said, you know what? I am perfect and amazing the way that I am right this second. And can I learn and grow and evolve and achieve more things and whatever? Sure. But I'm not going to let external circumstances or the expectations that I hold of myself determine how I value and feel of myself. Because that is a hamster wheel that you will forever be on. And so before we get into this, I just wanted to say that, because a lot of people that I talk to, high achievers, are like, okay, well, this is what's going to get my life together. You need to be okay with your life being how it is right now, exactly how it is right now. Because when you are resisting life, it resists you too. Can you learn and grow and evolve and things get quote unquote better? Sure. But you can't have this emptiness of like, once I get to this, then everything will be fine. You got to be okay with being where you're at right now at all times. And I know that's easier said than done sometimes, right? Because I'll be one to be like, oh, well, we need to make all this forward movement, all these things. But that pressure doesn't make your body want to do more. It doesn't make your soul want to do more, because it's coming from a place of shame and guilt and not enoughness. And I don't deserve. And now we're trying to earn our achievements and earn and prove our worth to ourselves. And that's just like a messy thing that we don't need to be a part of, because it doesn't do anything for you. Okay, so before we get into it, just say, I am enough. Okay. What can I do today? This has gotten me all the success that I have achieved thus far, is saying, what can I do today for 10 minutes instead of trying to take it all on at one time? Even if it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes is better than 0 minutes. Okay. Because I have been one to be like, I'm going to put 150 things on my to-do list. And then when I don't do them, I'm going to berate myself and tell myself like how shameful and guilty I should feel. And that doesn't make you want to do more things. That just repels things away from you. Instead, you can say, what can I do for 10 minutes today towards my goals? And then if I choose to do more than that and it feels good, great. But if I don't do more than that, that's okay too. Because if you are starting from like ground zero on your dreams, right? And we're getting overstimulated and trying to like change everything at one time, and it's just like the big intensive process, that's where we end up setting ourselves up for failure. You have to build that muscle. Like when I was working a full-time job trying to run a part-time business, like I couldn't jump a million miles per hour. I had to say, what can I just do for 10 minutes today? And then slowly I went into part-time in my job, part-time in my business, and then all of a sudden I was full-time in my business because of forward momentum. There was only a time when I only had 10 minutes. Being a single mom, working full time, taking care of my grandmother, going to school. I owned a different business at one time. Like I had a lot of stuff on my plate, right, for a long time. And I just said, what can I do right now that would make me a little bit more forward movement? Because when you're making forward movement in one area of your life, it radiates out into the other ones. And now the whole entire thing is moving together. You start to feel a little bit more happier. You start to take a little bit more inspired action. You start to work on your physical health like a little bit more. Your mental health is a little bit better. And like it just all works in tandem. So where you think like, oh, I need to fix all these different sections of my life right now. How about we just focus on 10 minutes of something today? Okay, to better self or better your environment or better your relationships. Start with 10 minutes and then see how you feel afterwards. And don't say, oh, well, I didn't get 30 minutes out. Well, 10 minutes is better than 0. Okay. In reaching your 1-year goals. As we go through these, if you do not meet your 1-year goals, who cares? You made forward movement. Forward movement is forward movement. If you're trying to make $100,000 next year, or you're trying to travel to Australia or whatever you're trying to do, and you only bring in 10,000 extra dollars next year, or you haven't traveled in a long time and you ended up traveling to Florida, you know, these are just like whatever, you made forward movement. That's great. And if you exceed them and you pass your 1-year goals, great. Forward movement is forward movement. And again, harking back to what we were saying before, like maybe that's not your chapter for that yet because you're not ready for it yet, right? But you're still making forward movement. So we don't want to berate and shame and guilt ourselves if we don't hit them, right? Okay, so now we're going to get into it. So I wanted to say those disclaimers because these are all things that I have literally had to shift and heal in my life, and I know it affects a lot of other people too. And so I want to preface these things so we don't get into it and you're like, oh no, I got to do all this stuff and then it's a tornado. That's not what we're doing here. Okay, so if we go on Google, this is called the Wheel of Life. It's a great tool, the psychology tool. So when you're trying to heal your whole entire life or heal your whole entire body or heal self, it's very overwhelming. So many steps, so much to do. Okay. So instead of doing that, how about we break it into sections? Kind of like if you're trying to heal your chakra system, if you're trying to do all the chakras all at one time, like it's too much. Maybe we just focus on a root chakra. Maybe we just focus on a throat chakra. Because what ends up happening is that forward momentum thing again, where like if you're focused on your physical health and you get a little bit healthier there, it's going to help you in all the other areas because you're a whole being, right? Like you getting better at communicating is going to help you in like having more fun. Okay, it's going to help you with your relationships. It's probably going to help you in your career and finances. So little movements in all these areas help all the other areas. Okay, so you can put in whatever you want here. Okay, these are just examples. And different wheels of life look different ways. Okay, so you might have personal growth, physical environment, family, finances, romance, health, fun and recreation, career. Okay, pick the sections that work for you. And we're going to go through these exercises. I don't expect you to do them all right now. We're just going to do like one a piece for a goal. And then you can come back and do the homework yourself. Okay. Or homework. or you can expand on these concepts. So don't feel rushed. Okay, to have it all figured out right now. This is just teaching you the framework. Okay. Okay. So let's say that we want to be a millionaire. Okay. We want to have $10 million in the bank, and you're making $50,000 a year right now. If you're going after $10 million in the bank, your subconscious is going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Ain't no way. Okay. Because I've been there myself. Okay. And can that happen? Sure. Like life is wild. Okay. Like it could happen overnight. But for the majority of things, like you baby step your way there. Right. So if we're wanting to make $10 million a year, but we're not making $100,000 this year, how about we focus on like a goal that's a little bit more tangible to us? Like when I was working on opening up my wealth container, like a couple of years ago, I was making like $2,000 a month. Okay, which that might be a lot to people, that might not be a lot to people, but for me as a single mom and where I live, not enough. Like barely getting by. And I was like, this cannot be my reality anymore. Like I'm holding a boundary with myself. Okay, I'm gonna double down on my mental or my wealth mindset. Okay, and I did a whole bunch of like reprogramming and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I know I'm gonna be a millionaire. Like I know that. But my subconscious obviously is not allowing me to get to that space right now because I have stuff I need to work through. I said, I'm going to set a goal of $5,000 next month. I said, I have no idea how I'm going to do that, but I think I could. I think it could be possible. Like that's all you need. You just need like a little sliver of, I think this could be possible for me. I don't know how. And not make it some like wild goal out here. Okay. Like you want to have the wild goal, but you need to have a tangible goal as well. Okay. So I said, I'm going to make $5,000 and I ended up making $4,000 that next month. Did I hit the 5? No. And that's what I mean with forward momentum. I could have sulked in that and be like, well, it wasn't the $5,000. I made double my income. Okay. And then I was like, you know what? This works. What I'm doing works. And I said, I'm going to make what did I say, like $8,000 next month, and I ended up making $6,000. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to make $10,000, and I ended up making $8,000 the next month in a 4-month period. Went from $2,000 to $8,000 in a month. That was like a huge anchor point in my consciousness because I learned that you have to open up your life containers tangibly to what your subconscious is relative to what you will believe is possible for you. Okay. And again, I'm not saying that you can't become a millionaire overnight because it happens. Okay. But if you are stuck right now, like you're like, life is not moving. Okay. It might be because you don't have micro goals that you're working on that are tangible enough to you right now. It is better to hit the tangible, closer to you, realistic goals than to forever wait for a macro goal to maybe happen. Right? Because a lot of times, not y'all, and there's just people, they are not taking action steps towards their goals. They are just waiting for things to show up for them. That is not exactly how manifesting works. Okay, like you have to meet the universe halfway. The universe, like you have to tell them, tell them, tell you, like, hey, I really believe that this is possible for me, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help me get there. I just need you to help set the background stuff up for me, but I'm going to meet you halfway. I'm going to meet myself halfway. So this is what we're going to do. Okay, so get out your paper and your pen or your pencil, and I want you to think, what is an amount that my subconscious is like, whoa, I don't know how we're going to do that, but I think that we could. That might be, let's do a month. Okay. If you are thinking like, wow, a $500 extra a month, that would be wild to me. Like that would be inconceivable. That is a good jump for you. But if you're already making $5,000 a month, you may need to do $10,000. You have to do something you have to pick a goal that will shock you when you get it. Okay, you have to like prove manifestation works to yourself. Like when I went through that period of $2,000 to that $4,000, I was like, oh my God. was like, I figured it out. I was like, we got it. Now, are there times where like I didn't make as much? Sure. Like along my journey, because I wasn't staying on top of the things that I needed to. I was letting things slip and let my thoughts and emotions like run wild and all this stuff. But once I proved that to myself, I can't go back. Like I know what I'm capable of, right? Like it's in there. Okay, so if $500 extra to you or $10,000 extra to you is like, it'd be okay, that's not gonna do it. Okay, you have to shock your subconscious with what you're able to achieve. Because if you have a shock factor, it's like, oh, what can I manifest next? It's like wild and big. Okay, so pick a number, either a year number or a month number, and you stick to that until it actualizes. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes it's gonna take a second. Okay, because you've been having all this programming and trauma and all this stuff running in the background for a long time. Like sometimes there's a lag in between your new consciousness and what manifests outside of you. Because you're deprogramming and defragmenting all this stuff, but you got to have a tangible goal to achieve in order to become that new identity and prove to self. So everybody write it down, whatever, you don't have to share in the comments, okay? Or you can if you want to. So that is what we're going to work on for the year. Okay, and you can change it if you want to. Again, this is just us doing this together right now. So what are some action steps that we can take on the way there? What can we do for 10 minutes? We can read a book. We can find a YouTube mentor that is living the lifestyle that you want to live or has the money that you want. And we can listen to the words that they're saying and the beliefs that they hold over themselves. You can start a savings account. You can learn about passive income, sign up for a course. You can sign up for my money mentor course if you want. Work on your money mindset or network with successful people. So these are all things that are tangible action steps that you can take that will tell the universe that you're ready to receive. What can I do today? Okay, because it's not just going to show up. Okay, you got to go towards it too. And this is where we have to step outside of our comfort zones and push ourselves. Not with shame and guilt, but just saying like, hey, I'm going to take an action step. Let me pick one of these things. Okay, I have a wheel of life on my mirror that has all the different goals that we're going over right now. And I go up to it every day and I say, which goal am I going to work on? What am I going to do towards that? Maybe I do only have 10 minutes. Maybe I have 3 hours, right? But I'm making a lot more forward movement doing this framework instead of like just aimlessly kind of like, oh, I want these dreams and these goals and stuff. You got to work towards, okay? And make a list of different things that you can do like this. Because we all, if you're neurospicy, you probably wake up and you don't know what type of energy you're going to be in. You might be dragging to brush your teeth, or you might be on that like God complex level where you're like, let's do all the things, right? So if you have like a list like this, you can make it a lot easier on yourself and say, well, I have energy for this and I don't have energy for this. And when you're doing these micro goals, the other goals that we're going to work on aren't going to take this long. It's just a framework. When you're working on these, break these down as far as you can. Like start a savings account. Maybe you need to research different savings accounts. Maybe you need to learn about different percentage rates. Maybe you need to visit different banks. Like break the steps down as far as you possibly can, because the more that you tick off, the more successful that you feel and the more fuel that you have to go forward. Like people be getting these steps and there's actually 100 steps in one step. And they're beating themselves up because they're like, well, I didn't get this done. Well, is it really because it's actually 100 steps? You know what I mean? Like set yourself up for as much success as you possibly can. Okay, but make a list like this. What can we work on? Okay, y'all give me one moment if you don't mind. I have to check something really quick. Okay. Okay, 1 year spiritual growth. Okay, so this could be learning a new modality, start your inner child healing journey, implement a new practice like meditation or journaling, go to a spiritual retreat, join a community class, or go on more nature walks. So this is something for your spiritual body. And again, these all have a million different steps to them. Right? So we have to take it like a day at a time. And what I end up doing is I say like, hey, I'm going to work on finances today. I'm going to work on spiritual today. I'm going to work on career today. I'm going to work on finances today. Because then it's just one thing a day for 10 minutes or however long I do it. And then you're making so much forward momentum in every single area because you're a whole being. Every time. Okay. 1 year spiritual growth. Okay, health goal. What is a physical health goal that you have? This goes back to that gym thing that I was talking about of like sometimes people are trying to go up a million miles per hour. How about we just eat 3 more healthy meals a week? Okay. What is your overarching goal? Is it lose weight? Is it, regulate your central nervous system? Like there's got to be a big one. Okay. Eat 3 more healthy meals a week, walk 5 times per week, walk 2 times per week, if that's more than what you're doing now. Lose 10 pounds, start taking vitamins, showering every day, start being spicy and starting a pole dancing class. What is your health goal? Or maybe you have like a like mental health thing going on, like anxiety, depression. Like that's not something that we just like heal overnight always. So what can we do underneath those umbrellas on a day-to-day basis or like on the wheel different days that will help us make a little bit of forward movement towards healing those things? Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this before I move on? I'm going to check the chat just in case. And again, like I said, there's no pressure. You can just come back to these, right? And the replay will be available for you. So you don't have to rush yourself. Okay. What is a family goal? When I say family, I use that very kind of loosely because family looks a lot different for people. Like family could be your chosen family. It can be your friends. It can be your inner children. It could be your dogs. That is relative to you. Okay. It can be your blood family. Okay. So take that with a grain of salt. Like what does family mean to you? Okay. So how can we improve in this area? We can do family game nights, spending time with your own inner children, maybe planning a family vacation for you and your partner and the kids, or you and your partner, decluttering your house, making a better like energetic environment space around you, or doing weekly check-ins with your family members. What is going to help you make forward movement towards your big family goal? And your big family goal might be like better communication, right? But what does that mean? Like, what are we going to do to get there, right? We have to have actionable steps. Maybe it's start therapy together. Big goal. And then you can have an even bigger goal. Like these are these are micro goals, a year goals. I just want to stipulate, I am not saying not to have macro goals of you 10, 15 years ago or 10, 15 years from now, right? Like maybe your goal is I want to get married and have kids. I know that's not for everybody, but it's just for this example, okay? That's a big macro goal. So a year from now, maybe it's like, oh, we start dating. Maybe we set up a dating profile. Maybe we ask our friends, do they know anybody? Right? So you can see how there's like tier levels here. Okay. Okay. Romance and self-love goal. So this could be with a partner. This could be with your friends. Like relationships look a lot of different ways. Okay. It doesn't fit in just like one box. This could be your self-love journey. Okay. If you're in a relationship with self, that's beautiful too. You can create a list of desires of what you want in a partner or friends or in yourself. Okay. Because when you do that, it helps you pull that person in or pull those people in or pull those traits out of yourself when you're clear of what it is that you want in life. Okay. Take yourself on dates, get massages, pedicures, salt baths, learn about the 5 love languages, like gift giving, words of affirmation. I highly suggest doing that with everybody in your life. Like when I figured out what my son's love languages were and what mine were, very different from one another. Like he needs different things from me and I need different things from him. So knowing that, like pro tip, like check the people in your life and your friends and your family. Okay. You understand each other on a much deeper level. Or go on new adventures together. Like a lot of times, like especially if you have like a partner, sometimes like it gets really like stuck and stagnant in your relationship because you don't have any newness coming in. Like the funsy onesies about being in a new relationship is all the new experiences that you have together. So like maybe we implement more of that to get that fresh, fun energy here, right? Or even with yourself. You get stuck and stagnant in life, it's probably because you don't have any new energy and you're stuck in a subconscious groove. So we need to like go to new stores, go to new restaurants, go to new parks, walk around in different neighborhoods. I do that sometimes. Okay, 1-year career goal. Okay, so what is your big overarching year career goal and how are we going to get there? Okay, we can learn a new skill, update your resume, ask for a raise. Maybe this is the year that you stick up for yourself and you're like, I am going to do this. Okay, start a business, find a mentor to help you, go to networking events. Some of these sound scary if you got social anxiety. So maybe we work on the social anxiety on the way to these things here. And then we work on the year career goal, right? Make it as small and tangible as possible. Okay. Friends and social goal. So we could do volunteer opportunities, meet local soul aligned friends. That was mine for a long time. Like I just want to meet 1 or 2 people that are on the same wavelength as me that are like in my local area, not just online. Okay. And then to get there, I would have to go to places where those people are hanging out. You can start your own meetup group if there's not one. Like I've been thinking about starting a queer hiking group or, just a hiking group specifically for, people with different vibes. Okay. Because there's not one here. And I see that there's other ones in other towns, and maybe I'm the person that needs to start it, right? That might be you. Throw a party for your friends, like a celebration, call a friend a week and do a check-in, or plan a trip together. So what is our 1-year friends social goal? All right. I think this is our last one here. A travel goal. So if we want to be a world traveler, okay, maybe we start with where can I travel that's close to me? Like maybe I haven't traveled in a long time and I take a day trip. Maybe I go a couple states over. Maybe I go to, like start moving in that direction. Even if it's just you going like to a town next to you that you've never been in before, what you're doing is starting to embody that identity and telling yourself in the universe, I'm ready to start becoming this person and I'm going to take action steps towards it, right? But everybody's at different levels with this, like where you're starting. Pre-plan a trip. It doesn't cost any money. If let's say you don't have the money, you can figure out, like pick a place, like let's say Mexico. Okay. You want to go to Cancun, Mexico, but you don't have the money right now. Okay. You can pick where you want to go, all the excursions, the hotel that you would stay in, like what a route that you would take to get there, or like what airlines you would take, all this stuff. You would be surprised at how much the universe will align things for you if you come with the belief that I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm just going to be prepared. Like there's real magic and power in that. Like, you can be listening to tropical, or not tropical birds, but like parrots and stuff, like on YouTube, be listening to that, like really immerse yourself in like feeling like you're there, and that's how you shift the identity. Like, I went to an indoor botanical gardens, and it was like giving very much rainforest, and I was like, oh my God, it is so nice to be in Costa Rica right now. Like, this is amazing. I love this so much. Right. And just like putting myself there already, and like go ahead and start planning for it, because you never know. You never know. Okay, what opportunities will find you. Okay. Maybe you start a savings account. You look at remote jobs that allow you to travel. Become a travel influencer. Maybe you make content, or you make blogs, videos. Maybe you get paid promotion to do that. I was listening to a story the other day where this woman was like, I want to travel around the world, but I don't have money. And instead of letting her self-limiting beliefs and her doubts get the best of her, she went to all these different airlines and said, hey, if you pay for my airplane tickets and my hotel, I will professionally take photography videos everywhere that I go, and you can use them in your travel brochures and on your websites. And they said, great, that's a great idea. We'll do that. And then she got to travel around the world for free. Paid for everything, paid for her food, paid for her tickets, paid for her hotel, and she just got to have a good time and vibe for an entire year. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. When you don't let those things hold you back and you prepare. Now, she had to step outside of her comfort zone and go to those airplanes and say, like, hey, what do you think about this? Which is probably very nerve-wracking. And they could have said no, but they didn't. Right. Watching YouTube videos. You can be watching YouTube videos about Australia, Mexico, Canada, wherever you want to go. Prepare yourself energetically. Okay. Get your passport. Maybe you don't have that yet. Maybe that's the next step. So in case one of those opportunities swings your way, or maybe you get the money, you'll be prepared to go. Okay. But that's doing the action movements forward to prepare and get ready and tell the universe you're ready. Okay. 3 emotions that you want to feel with your dream life. Okay, a year from now. I want you to take all those goals, and I want you to say, how would I feel if all of these things were happening right now? Happy, joyful, peaceful, magical, expansive, whimsical, excited, whatever that means for you. I want you to pick 3 emotions, and we're going to harken back to what we said earlier and say, I'm going to focus on these 3 things because these 3 things are representative of all my year goals being completed. So when you are stressed and anxious about all of these goals that you haven't obtained yet or don't know how to attain, put them down and say, you know what? I want to feel happy, love, and motivated. What is bringing me that right now? How can I embody that in the here and now? Because when you do that and you bring up those emotions in your body, then you get the steps. Then you get the downloads. Then you get the intuition from that higher self that is already there. Because they're already there. The reason that you have desires is because there's a version of you that already has it. That's what you're picking up on. They're constantly trying to ping you with the intuition of like, hey, how about you do this? Or hey, how about you do it? How about you go here? How about you do that? Your believability is determinant of whether you can hear them clearly and if you take those action steps. When I'm looking at people's soul contracts, I can see where they're headed on their timeline and what's available and possible for them, but it's still up to you to make the choice to get there. Like that lady with the airplane, like she didn't have to do that. And then she might be like stuck not getting her dreams and goals, but she heard future her talking to her and saying like, hey, why don't you go try this and step outside your comfort zone? Okay. And she was following that emotion, right, that she would have if she was able to travel all over the world, and then it got her there. Right. And there's tons and tons of stories. Highly recommend looking at other people that are trying to get what you want, that have already manifested it. Like, it'll help you keep on track. Okay. 3 personality traits that you want to embody. What does you a year from now, that version of you, what are they doing? Okay. Do they need to be confident and self-assured? Are they compassionate? Do they know their worth? Are they holding healthy boundaries? Are they respecting themselves? Are they accountable? All of these traits, you can interject whatever you want here. These are just examples, okay? When you get to a pivot point and you say, oh, I don't know if I want to do this because, anxiety or, fears, doubts, or worries, what would higher self me do that has these goals already? They'll give you the kick in the butt. Well, I can't keep doing what I'm doing if I want to be them. And so if you have personality traits that you're encoding into this future you're personifying this future you the year from now, you can check yourself. You can keep yourself accountable and say, oh, well, that version of me is confident, so I need to be confident right now. That version of me is open-minded, so I need to be open-minded right now. Right? But you have to have tangible things to check yourself. And so the personality traits is where that comes in. Okay. 3 things that you want to release, because there's things that you can't take with you to the new timeline. We already said that, right? So that might be behavioral patterns. That might be thoughts that you're thinking. That might be people that aren't, the most supportive or beneficial in your life, or are, we need to readjust time and energy. It might be caffeine. That was one that I had to let go of. Doom scrolling on TikTok for hours. Okay, not about that, because I've done that too. Okay, that's one I'm currently is not being on my phone late at night. Shame and guilt. Maybe that can't come with us. Texting your ex. Okay, being impatient. Knowing that sometimes it's not the right chapter right now, but we can still keep making forward movement. Dropping clothes on the floor. That was one of mine, where I used to just have clothes all over the place. And there's one day that I was like, would higher self me that is living the life that I want to be in, would she be dropping her clothes on the floor? And then the answer is no. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to go hang it up or put it in the hamper. Right? It's a good way to keep yourself accountable. What would me a year from now do? Okay. New skill that you want to learn. This is something that is keeping us excited while we're moving towards our goals, right? And is helping with our personal development. Maybe you want to learn Excel spreadsheets, how to change it higher, how to cook, learn a new language, public speaking, cryptocurrency, something that is going to grow and evolve our consciousness and help us in our life. And again, these are just my examples. You can put whatever you want here. A new hobby that you want to pick up, because we need to have things that are fun, okay, that bring us enjoyment, that aren't necessarily us getting paid for it, because sometimes that brings icky vibes with it, right? It puts a lot of pressure. So something that is just for your pure enjoyment. Okay, gardening, rollerblading, sewing your own clothes, learning how to do that, hiking, cycling, playing an instrument. I don't know why I put join a bee down here. I obviously did not finish that word. Book club. That's what I put. Join a book club at the end. Okay. Maybe that's a good place for you to make connections with other people too, if you've been wanting to work in the social departments. And as a reminder, all your friends do not need to be spiritual and woo. Okay. Sometimes if you find a commonality with people that are on a similar mission, okay, and a vibe, that is very fulfilling as well. Somebody, if you're a gardener and you find another gardener friend, that can be a very fulfilling relationship without it having to be somebody that's super spiritual and woo, because you're still going to connect on that very deep soul level. So I just want to throw that out there as well, because that's a thing that I needed to learn myself. Okay. Okay. 3 beliefs that you hold about yourself. What does you a year from now think about themselves? They know they're capable. They love themselves unconditionally. They're strong and courageous. Everything always works out for them. They're prosperous and abundant. They're always receiving new ideas. They're the creator of their reality. When you sit down and you intentionally list these things out, it immediately starts re-encoding your reality. When you get clear on where you're headed and where you're trying to go, and you take action steps, you'll be shocked at how quickly your reality will start to shift. But if we're just kind of walking around aimlessly and don't have like these, like I said, tangible things closer to us and clarity, you get lost without a compass. Okay. So don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel all at one time. Just take like an hour or two and sit down and do this, and it'll start shifting things immediately. Okay. That's why I like to break it down as far as possible to make it very easy. Okay. This is our last slide before we jump onto, well, I got one more after this, and then we're going to do our giveaway. Okay, 5 words to describe your higher self. Maybe that's confidence, they're bold, they're a CEO boss babe, they're accountable, they're resilient, they're determined, they're focused, they're magical, they're whimsical, they're joyful. Those words that you put down will help you start to feel that, because when you start feeling those in your everyday, you're like, wow, I am starting to become higher self me. This obviously means I'm on the right track and I'm on the right path because I'm feeling this now. That is your compass to get there. And then we just make a list, a wheel, pick our 1-year goal, and just work on one every day. Just one. And you'll make the forward movement that you want to make instead of trying to take on the whole entire project all at one time. Okay. All right. So again, if it's your first time meeting me, my name is Sage Gwendolyn. I'm an expansion coach, a mom, your magical fairy guide today, business owner. I want to share a couple different things with y'all before we finish up here. If you want to reach out to me on social media, you have questions about the things that I was talking about, you can reach out to me at Soul Harmony Magic. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also reach out to me on email, soulharmonymagic@gmail.com. I will respond to you as soon as I can. And a couple of different things that I offer in case you want to work further one-on-one together. The cosmic community, which I was telling y'all about earlier, that I was shifting into my new identity for. That is for high achieving light workers who have very big goals and dreams, but they don't have a whole lot of other people in their 3D reality that understand their vision and where they're headed, because we all use different type of languaging in the spiritual sector. Okay. And not everybody understands what's going on with the collective consciousness shifts and how everything's shifting and changing. And so this is a place where you can feel seen, heard, loved, and supported. I do group coaching calls in there. They're kind of like brainstorming sessions though. And so we all share how to help each other grow. So I'll say, hey, what's a goal you're working on? And then we all advise together, this is how you can make forward movement. Because when you're stuck and stagnant and you're in your own mind, it's very hard to see how to make forward movement because you're too in your situation because you have your own ideas. Now, if you tap into future you, that's very beneficial, but it's also good to have other people's perspectives because they have different experiences, right? It was great, the one that we had the other day. Somebody said, wow, y'all just changed my life. And so I wanted to share that. If you want to join, we would love to have you. It's super fun, high vibe. I also pour tons of resources in for your spiritual awakening journey. So not just the goal stuff, but it's also energy healing, money mindset, esoteric things. It's just a great way to stay motivated and accountable. Okay. But you can find that through my social medias. I also offer private coaching sessions. So if you are going through this presentation and you're like, whoa, this is a lot. Okay. Or I'm not sure what small action steps to take, or I'm not sure what my 1-year goal plan would be. That's what the private coaching sessions are for. So that is to help you create a very solid map and plan and help give you some confidence and self-esteem that it is possible for you if that's what you need support with, or just a place to vent about what's going on in your life. Okay, from an outsider perspective, and to get some guidance and clarity. I also do Akashic record readings. And so if you're like, why did I incarnate here? What kind of spiritual gifts do I have? How can I share those with humanity? That is what Akashic record readings are for. It's I read your soul contract and help you understand your multidimensional self and what you're doing here and how to make forward movement. I also have a 3-month mentorship program. So this is where we work weekly for 3 months to shift your entire identity. This is, we go through every self-limiting belief that you have, childhood trauma. This is, I want to completely be a new person in 3 months. This is where we make huge, massive consciousness shifts because you're ready. Okay, that is a bigger investment in self, because what ends up happening sometimes is you create a lot of shifts in your life, but it also creates rapid acceleration, right? So this is for the high achiever. Okay, that is ready to make some monumental transformational shifts. But if you are interested in any of these, you can find more information on my social medias that will link you to my website, or you can just voice note me or email me. I'm very accessible. Okay. Okay. All right. We're going to do our giveaway now. So I'm going to pause the screen share. Let's see. Oh, no, I don't want to pause the screen share. Hold on. I want to get out of this. Here we go. Okay. Okay, I put everybody's name here. Excuse me. Did I get everybody? I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, cool. Drum roll. Michaela, you are the winner of the private coaching session. I'm so excited. Michaela actually just joined the cosmic community the other day. So very excited. I'm very happy for you. I will reach out to you tomorrow to get that set up. I'm so excited to work together. Yeah. Yes, how exciting. But I'll get with you tomorrow, Michaela. Okay. So what was everybody's biggest takeaway today? I would love to hear. If you want to share, of course, you don't have to, but if you want to, I would love to hear. Or if you're watching this in the future, if you want to share in the comments, it's really great to hear like other people's experiences and perspectives, because maybe it might differ from your own or give you a different level of understanding. But also it's very beneficial for me to have feedback. So I can utilize it for my future workshops and lives. Or what was your favorite thing that you learned, or a new perceptual awareness that you had, or maybe you let go of a limiting belief while you were in this workshop. But I would love to hear. I'm going to put it back over here on our thing. Oop. I'm very excited for everybody working towards your goals too. Do we feel like this made it a little bit more tangible and not so overwhelming and overstimulating? Because I've definitely been there myself, where I'm like, oh, I see all of the things that aren't working, so let's just tackle them all right this second. Sometimes you need to, like, self-awareness, and we'll finish up here, but self-awareness is key. Okay, sometimes like you just knowing these things, like that is huge stuff. Like that is monumental. Like you need to really celebrate yourself for being able to get to that point, because there are so many times that we're just walking around unconscious and we don't know like why we're stuck, or like what, you know what I mean? So like when you see those things, it's okay to take a pause and say, I'm amazing for figuring this out. Look at me. I'm a rock star. Like, wow. Okay. I don't have to do it all right this second. How about we show ourselves some unconditional love and grace and compassion for how amazing we are, that we now see what's going on. And just sit with that for a second. Like some of us have very deep core inner wounds of conditional love with self. Okay. And your higher self that you're trying to get to, those big macro things over here, they're not doing that. Okay. They learn to love themselves unconditionally along the way to be able to get to that wild level. So how about you start doing that right now? Okay. And just saying like, I see it. Cool. We'll work on it. It's fine. Okay. And do like this framework and just break it down as small as you can and ask yourself, what can I do today for 10 minutes? I am successful in the here and now. Forward movement is forward movement. And I'm just going to focus on one thing every day. And if I skip a day, that's okay too. Okay. But I hope this gave everybody some direction and focus and motivation. Thank you, Sage. I personally don't have anything to say other than that. It was a lot of great reminders, as well as great to break everything down, especially for someone like me who has trouble focusing. Oh, great. Good. And I'm going to send the replay out so y'all actually have the slides with you as well. And so like you'll have the framework if you weren't like writing notes the whole entire time. Okay. So you'll have those too. Because I know sometimes we like to really stay engaged, or at least I do. Sorry, wrong button. I've taken a lot away. This is amazing. Thank you. Oh, you're so welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, y'all let me know in the comments if you're watching this in the future what your biggest takeaway was. Okay, everybody, gonna hop off now. I love y'all very much, my beautiful star beams. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm proud to have you here too, the people that are live or watching this in the future. Like, it's amazing that you're taking time out of your busy lives to focus on your growth and evolution and self-development and inner child healing and all these things. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Okay, and I'm very proud of you, and you're very loved. Okay, and you tell yourself that too. Okay. Okay, I will see y'all next time. Bye.